Play the waiting game. And wait, what? Oh my god. Sorry, I have to lower it? It's like literally the second I press live, my model just stops working. Oh no, not smoothing. Sensitivity. Sensitive. Oh, sensitive. How about that? If you're gonna be a jerk like that. Yeah, we're back at it again. Yeah, in like a minute or two, I will discuss my funny morning I've had, which is saying a lot because I've been awake for an hour. So yeah, I mean, but that's fine. That's fine. Mornings suck anyways. Oh wait. Oh, hell yeah. Dude, Twitter sucks sometimes, but Twitter's fucking awesome on other times. So I did my tier list yesterday. This has nothing to do with the story I was going to talk about. Did my tier list yesterday, and I had my final tier on there, which was you fucking look cool, and I need to follow you on social media. And I've already found a couple of them just out of fucking random for you posts. I what a fucking world. But yeah, I guess I'll do story time now since, why not? But I was like, all right, let's get everything set up, and then I'm like, I'm gonna uh I'm gonna just download a game that I have bought on Steam, see if it works. Start it once, nothing happens like it did the last time. I'm like, fuck, okay, that sucks. What if I give it another try? And then it didn't work. And then my computer blue screened 15 minutes before stream. And so I fucking scrambled like a madman. I'm like, start up computer. Computer starts up finally after like 3 minutes of it blue screening. And then I open up Streamlabs and everything's gone again. Everything's gone. And so I have to cobble together my fucking scenes. And they're still a little scuffed. Like I can fix some of them now, but they're still a little fucking scuffed. from updating them, quote unquote. And so so yeah, I fucking was like, I got this. We're in a stream. We had an awesome night stream yesterday. I had so much fun. And then just absolutely got fucking sent to the Shadow Realm this morning. Oh my god, I'm tired too. I raided someone yesterday and they ended up being really fucking cool and watching really interesting videos while drawing really cool art. And so I accidentally got stuck in there for like an hour and a half. Which I was going to go to bed like immediately after I was done streaming. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting few hours between streams. Like 11 hours between streams. Ah. Oh, but we're here. We got this. We chatting it up. Might watch some videos. Who knows? You know what? Let's find some shit to watch, maybe. So, yeah, I'm trying to find something. I'm trying to find something. I'm fucking I'm panicking. I swear. That's not a thing to admit, but move you over there. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can find anything. God, I fucking hate this song because it sounds like a phone vibrating. Fuck, a new Nux video came out, and I'm not sure, just straight up because of the title, I'm not sure if I could show it. But trust me, I'm actually doing something. Oh, fuck, I forgot that. Damn it. Oh. Wait, is this shit telling me that it just won't play if I have something else on the screen? Or if I have this up? I'm a professional streamer, by the way. Did that. There we go. Holy shit. You know, I, what's the word I'm looking for? So the reason I got stuck in there was in that stream yesterday was because they were watching Metal Gear shit. And of course, Metal Gear being the dumbest fucking franchise on the planet, I had to watch it. I literally had no choice. And shit just gives me an aneurysm. Ah. Okay. Okay, I think we got a winner of can you beat Metal Gear Solid 3 without eating?
Jumping right back into another Metal Gear challenge so soon after that 4-hour behemoth of a run. You need not worry about my crumbling sanity, I lost it long ago. But in
Dude,
an
same.
attempt to save what little is left of it, this will not be anywhere close to the size of the previous undertaking. For starters, this challenge only covers a single game, as this time we ask the simple question of, can you beat...
That reminds me, you said a single game. There's a plan in the future at some point to do a full Resident Evil, like, I guess I call it an anthology run, where I go from 1 to 8 in one single run. I'm still planning that, and I'm going to do it in a single run, a single stream. No, hopefully no breaks, but we'll see that. And I'll probably just have to do everything New Game Plus because I want to get through it. I don't want the stream to be 32 hours long. I'd rather get it done in like 18 to 20. So yeah, that's the thing I had in mind. I'm gonna look into it because I need to still fucking get used to one. The tank controls fuck me up every time. But yeah, yeah, just doing Resident Evil 1 through 8 in one stream, that'd be fucking fun, wouldn't it? Hopefully. I'm just trying to think if there is. It would be cool, and with 6 is one of my big issues. I don't know if I should just be a story in 6, or if I should be all the stories in 6. And then I would like to play 5 and 6 co-op, just because the games are way more fun that way. And me just going, oh, sorry. Oh, shit. I'm sorry. At the screen for 3, 4, like 6 hours for Resident Evil 6, just by myself would be fucking agony. But yeah, that's a future plan I have with Oh. Why'd you go? I... I love my PC. Okay. I unchecked capture cursor and it just went, see ya. Fuck you. So yeah, I'm trying to think when I mean, I would definitely need a few months to do it, like to get Resident Evil 6 and 1 down. Every other one I think I should have fine. Maybe 2. So I'm only going to play the most recent versions of them. So I'm going to play Resident Evil 1 Remake, 2 Remake, 3 Remake. We'll see about 4 Remake. I might just do 4 normally just because it has the Ditman glitch. And then 7 and 8. Oh god, 7. 7 fucking kills me. So fun, but man, that game kicks your ass sometimes. So I'm gonna hope that I have a save file on my Xbox. So I could just do that. But yeah, all in all, I think I'll probably have that to go in like 4 or 5 months. It just really depends on when I get my ass together for 1 and 6.
For starters,
Back to the
this
video.
challenge only covers a single game, as this time we ask the simple question of, can you beat Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater without eating? A challenge that goes directly against the name of the game? You love to see it. So, for those unfamiliar, Snake Eater has some survival elements baked into its stealth espionage, just to give it a little bit of flair over the other entries. It's fairly basic stuff. You have a stamina gauge that you need to keep topped up by eating. The tastier the food, the more stamina is restored. Now, what does stamina actually do? Well, it keeps Snake in peak physical condition the higher it is.
Hey, how's it going,
At
Kira?
max stamina, Snake suffers almost zero.
I'm doing alright. I'm just watching some videos since I'm tired. Oh, God, voice crack. I'm tired right now, so I'm just kind of hanging out. You know, maybe play some games later, but how are you doing? Hopefully you're doing good. I kind of peeked by your stream yesterday. I didn't chat because it was like 1 in the morning and I needed to go to bed to wake up at 8. So, sorry about that, but I made sure to at least peek by for your stream a little bit.
Gun sway when aiming in first person mode, allowing for an easier time landing precise shots, as well as allowing him to sneak more efficiently, or so the game says, and perhaps most importantly of all, the more stamina you have, the faster your health recovers. As the stamina bar drains, as you might expect, Snake has a harder time keeping his hand steady, recovers far less health to the point of it not recovering at all, and once it drops below half, his stomach will periodically growl, which can actually alert enemies to your position. Yes, I am being
Metal Gear games are so stupid.
Now, it is
Why is
possible
that a
to find a
thing?
rare item known as life medicine, which will heal a portion of your health regardless of your current stamina, but as an added challenge, I decided that I wouldn't use them either. Just thought it would make things a little bit more interesting. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. Unlike our last foray into the Metal Gear universe, I am allowed to skip cutscenes this time, as they have no bearing on the run itself. That said, I do still watch a few of them because I just can't help myself. First thing I need to do once I'm in control is of course get my gear back, which is as simple as slithering my way up this tree.
No, I
and
totally
falling
get
on
it,
top
but
of
no,
it.
you're...
As soon as I do, I
Oh,
make
what
sure
was
to
the game? It was
unequip
Marvel
everything in my
something, I can't
backpack for my
remember.
quick items that isn't
Like I said, I
quick
didn't
listed.
drop by the
This is
chat,
because
but
every item in your quick inventory
so I'm sorry about
has a weight
that,
value
but
attached to it. The higher that number is,
I
the
totally
faster your
understand.
stamina
That's why I
drains.
started doing
Granted, it
night
shouldn't
streams
matter
for
much
that
as of
exact
right now, as
reason,
we are in the prologue,
which
and
I'll
our
be doing
stamina
one
will
tonight
regen
as
near
well,
the end of this mission and the
at
start of the
10
main story.
Eastern, or
As
not
for
10
now, I
Eastern,
briefly
12,
get
yeah,
beaten up by a
10
crocodile,
Eastern.
and then proceed on to some actual
For that
human-based
exact
stealth
reason, because
encounters.
pretty much
Stealth
all of my followers and viewers are on the other side of the planet from me. For some reason, I don't know why I have like not a single American viewer. But yeah, so I'm starting to do some. At least for Monday and Tuesdays, I'm gonna try and start doing night streams to do more kind of chilled out streams as well, like I'm kind of doing right now. But you know, but yeah, time zones suck.
is of course the name of the game, but it is also entirely optional for the most part. For now, I just play how I normally would, slowly creeping through the brush and using the first person aiming to land instant knockout headshots to deal with enemies before I'm even within their sight. Yes, again, I am going non-lethal for the most part. We'll see how long that lasts. Making it to the next area, and this really just serves as a mini tutorial as we follow up from Snake's shit-eating grin by testing the limits of lethality.
I'm sorry
as we
about
hope
that.
None of these soldiers has a deadly bee sting allergy. Is it bee sting allergy, or is it just bee allergy? Well, I don't know. Feel free to let me know in the comments, and while you do that, I will effortlessly put all of Sokolov's guards down for a nap and rescue the man himself for the first of 2 times today. Sort of. This is where
Jesus
I would
Christ.
have the encounter with the Ocelot unit, but
Yeah,
due to
that
me
sucks.
skipping the cutscene, all we see is Snake.
I know
standing
the
over
feeling.
Ocelot's snoozing body.
I definitely know
As
the
of right now,
feeling
I have been
where
playing for about maybe 10 minutes. And
until
as you can
recently,
see,
where I upgraded my CPU, I literally couldn't play any games on my PC. Like, at least not at like above 20 FPS. So I hear you. It sucks.
my
But
stamina
I
bar
absolutely
is
lucked
already
out with my
starting to decrease.
CPU.
While stealth results in less opportunities for me to take damage, and therefore meaning I won't have to worry about the lack of healing from my stamina, it will also take longer than running through most encounters, which of course, the longer I take doing anything, the more stamina I will ultimately lose. I will need to try and find a delicate balance between the two if I don't want to run out too fast. Following the screams and cries of Sokolov, we are led back to the bridge, where the boss defects and joins up with a lightning rod posing as a human, along with Spider Bob Fearpants and a living hornet's nest. With absolutely no time to
Oh,
assess
that's
the
awesome.
situation, Snake's arm is broken.
Yeah, I should
and we are left to
probably
glue it
be
back
smarter
together
like
again.
that, but
After one of the main plot points is
instead
shown
I
and quickly
go,
glossed over,
I have
Snake
strict
discovers
schedule
wrong with
that I
the
will
vault
never
system,
change
and now it's time for the main mission.
until I
and
change
for
it
this one to
someday
start
by like
properly.
oversleeping or
As
some
soon
stupid
as we
shit
are
like
back in
that.
the jungle, our only gun is dismantled by the boss, leaving us mostly defenseless. I say mostly, as CQC is still a thing, but more importantly for right now, is the 5 stun grenades that I also have in my back pocket. As mentioned, stealth isn't entirely necessary, so running straight for the approaching guards and blinding them with flashbangs to progress as fast as possible isn't even the worst idea. The soldiers patrolling the bridge where we took our first diving lessons earlier are easy enough to dispatch with the ever satisfying CQC slam. And from there I meet up with Eva, have a snooze, and then get to dealing with the Ocelot unit. Thanks to Eva, we now have some actual guns, so I equip the Mark 22 and begin dispatching the enemy. I slip out under the floorboards until I'm outside of the room where Sokolov
That's
once
really
was,
cool, though.
and as soon as I'm able, I take out the sniper.
I was
perched on top of the
mostly
roof.
saying
The
I was
amount
mostly
of
saying I have a
times
strict
forget about
schedule.
him
It's a
is
bad
shocking,
thing
which will normally result in me getting spotted.
because if somebody
Speaking
wants
of
to watch
triggering
me,
an
they're never
alert,
going to know
while
I
do
exist
manage
since
to
I'm
crawl
just
under this
stuck
section
being
of
at
the
the same
wall and take
time
out this soldier
out of
without
my own
anybody noticing,
stubbornness.
once I get out in the open, I was spotted pretty fast. No way around it, this was entirely my bad for not keeping an eye on my surroundings while focusing on some of the other backup who were near the exit. That said, this sped the encounter along nicely as 2 of the remaining 3 had no choice but to rush me as I took cover behind this tree, which, of course, led to them getting a free grass inspection. As for the last man, well, he was quickly sorted out with 3 well-placed tranks to the torso. With that done and dusted, it's onto the swamp. It's a short section, but one I was dreading all the same. And no, it's not because of the instant kill crocodiles. Rather, it was the blood-sucking leeches that infested the water. Once a leech latches on, the only way to get rid of it is with a lit cigar, which is simple enough to do, by the way, in the survival viewer, as a cigar is the one healing resource that Snake has an infinite amount of. The problem is, despite the fact they suck blood, they actually rapidly deplete your stamina rather than your health. This coupled with the fact that I am purposely slow swimming through most of the lake as to avoid using too much stamina, and well, I think you get the idea. One leech attached itself to me rather quickly, and as soon as I noticed, I burned it off. This also made me slightly paranoid and had me checking the survival viewer every few feet just to keep an eye out for any other unwelcome squatters. I consider myself lucky that I only had to deal with one of them this time. It honestly could have gone so much worse. The area following the swamp is a complete cakewalk. Sure,
This
the
is
traps and
wild.
dogs seem intimidating, but unless it's a pitfall trap, you can just
God,
crawl under
Metal
slash
Gear
over
games
them,
take the
and
most amount of
dogs themselves
patience, and I
leave
don't
you
think I will
asleep like
ever
any other
have
creature.
them.
Sure, they don't stay asleep
Like,
for as long
even
as
doing,
people,
like, not even
but
doing
it's more
challenges,
than
just
enough
in
time for you to hop
general.
through this fence,
It just
take
takes
out the
so
remaining
much
guards, and
goddamn
transition to the
patience.
next area. The entirely optional base camp is up next, and despite me wanting to get a move on as fast as possible, that still didn't stop me from taking out all of the guards, looting the base of all its supplies, as well as blowing up its comms, food, and weapon storage buildings, along with a hind, which should help me later. Once I was done here, it was straight into the first boss fight with Ocelot. While not going for a full non-lethal playthrough, I still choose to fight the bosses this way. For boss fights like Volgan and the boss, it's simply due to it being more efficient, as you can do a good chunk of stamina damage to them as well with CQC. As for Ocelot here, well, truth be told, I just want the camo that I get if I win the fight by depleting his stamina. There was nothing too special about the fight this time. I didn't even really get to trigger any of the unique moments, other than the quick draw duel near the end of the fight. I will say it did go smoother than last time. If for nothing else, I remembered to actually make use of the third person auto aim when he was out in the open, instead of just trying to rely on first person aiming, which, while effective, leaves you unable to move while you line up your shots. As for why I specifically wanted his camo though, simple. When it's equipped, you have reduced gun sway regardless of your current stamina. This will be handy for boss fights going forward, but on the other hand, other than when I'm in the mountains later, its camo rating is kinda bad, so I am likely to be spotted a lot if I wear it too often. You'll be glad to know that I remembered to grab the thermal goggles this time, so I'm not stumbling around completely clueless this time during the cave section. Also, thanks to the comments on the previous Metal Gear video, I now know that if you just wait around in the cave for 10 minutes, Snake's eyes will auto-adjust to the darkness, and I'll be able to see around the area more clearly.
The attention to detail is absurd. They don't need to program that in there. But that's so dumb. It's the dumbest shit on the planet. I have no words. I have literally no words to describe how I feel about Metal Gear games. Games I wish I could get into because, again, I'm impatient, so I can't play them. At least as fun as a lot of other people can.
If I wasn't worried about the amount of stamina that it would cost me, I would 100% have tried it for this video. With a combination of the map and heat signatures of all the nearby crabs, it wasn't long before I was able to find my way out of the cave and straight into the boss battle with B-Boy. Like always, he is probably the easiest boss. At least Ocelot had cover to hide behind. This guy is just standing out in the open. Sure, he can sacrifice his Hornet brethren to act as a shield, but a single explosive is more than enough to make them question their loyalty and allow me to continue laying on the pain. Sorry, not sorry. With him dead, it's time for more swimming as I attempt to sneak past some of the flying platform thingies. Well, it doesn't exactly work due to me being kind of impatient today, but not to worry, so long as I can land headshots, they will go down just like any other standard enemy. To do something a little different, I decide to slightly venture off the beaten path as I make my way into this optional area. There is another weapon storage here, but we are not so interested in blowing this one up. No, more so, we are here to grab the sniper rifle that they have so carelessly left just lying around. Anyone who has played Snake Eater before knows exactly what is about to happen. As he is not the main focal point of the run this time around, along with his boss fight being a near death sentence for my stamina due to his non-lethal stamina draining sniper, I am choosing to get rid of the end right now before his boss fight. This is simply done by entering the next main area, equipping our new SVD, carefully lining up our shot, and then unload all of our bullets into the end and the surrounding soldier. It only takes 2 headshots to kill him here, and seeing how he appears to have no iframes, you can very quickly double tap him for the confirmed kill. While I took out the rest of the guards, one of them was fast enough to activate his radio, sending in an extra unit to assess the situation. I probably would have had time to take him out if the end's wheelchair didn't come packed with a sense of vengeance and home in on Snake as one final FU from the old man. The reinforcements were literally just 2 guards with shields, both of which I was able to knock out with no hassle. I grab all the goodies in the area, the most important of which is the night vision goggles, and then made my way inside the nearby building. All 3 of the guards occupying the building can be taken out from the entrance, so long as you position yourself correctly, allowing me to steal more supplies to my heart's content. I also blew up another food storage unit. Snake is a bitter individual, so if he can't eat, then nobody can eat. Back out into the jungle ever so briefly, and for the one and only time in this run, I use my lethal pistol to kill a poison dart frog. This is of course not for me to eat, as that goes against the entire run, even though if I did eat the frog, it would do more harm than good. No, this is just in case I need it to distract the fear for his boss fight in a few minutes. For now though, I need to sneak into the lab, which is easily done by sticking to the left-hand side of the facility. It has less guards patrolling the outside area, plus I can crawl through this vent here to end up directly in the middle of the base. I of course also equip my scientist disguise, as I don't feel like running and gunning my way through. However, running and smoking my way through, yeah, that works. Making it to Granin and getting the card is simple enough, and I figured the return journey would be just as easy, but for whatever reason, I got spotted. This felt a bit cheap, like I knocked out the scientist who spotted me, but one of the others in a completely different room activated the alarm and called in the guards.
That's about right.
It's not a huge deal as I get past them all with a combination of the knockout gas and slamming the door in one dude's face. Once all the guards downstairs are sleeping, the alert ends and I can go back to walking around the facility with no repercussions. I leave the area the exact same way that I got in, as I essentially just retrace my steps all the way to where I killed that frog, as that's now the fear stomping grounds. As soon as the fight begins, I pop the fake death pill, probably making the fear think that I died of the poison from the Brazilian wandering spider. Fun fact about that particular poison, it has another side effect that the fear forgets to mention. He may be Naked Snake, but he's sure as hell becoming solid. Anyway, I take the pill so that he investigates my pretending corpse, and then once he believes me to be dead, he will turn around and not face Snake. Once this happens, I take the revival capsule, and then throw 2 stun grenades to freeze him momentarily while I land a few shots on him with the Mark 22. It's enough to take away 1 bar of stamina, which will help speed along the fight. Normally, you would abuse this method on New Game Plus, as rather than the pistol, you can actually use the boss's Patriot to make very short work of his entire stamina bar within like 2 seconds.
Holy shit.
I cannot do that, of course, so instead I just equip my thermal goggles and have the fight play out as it normally would. He eventually comes down from the trees to find food, and as soon as he does, I toss the dead frog, as he will automatically pick up whatever the closest food is to him whenever he needs to eat. I also noticed here that when he is searching for food, his stamina cannot be completely drained. I noticed this because I kept landing shot after shot on him, and he was making his injured sound to indicate that they were connecting, yet it never went any lower. Well, fortunately, he did eat that stupid frog, and then I quite literally kicked his ass. With him down, the only member of the Cobra unit left is the Fury. We do still have to pass through what would have been the end boss.
These games.
Only now it is filled with members of the Ocelot unit. Seeing how we didn't kill the ones during our first encounter, it's likely these are the same people looking for a rematch. Just like when fighting the End, good use of thermal goggles makes this segment
literally kicked his ass.
That said, CQC is now out of the question, as my stamina has reached the stage where Snake's stomach starts grumbling. To be fair, I probably wasn't going to get close enough to any of them anyway, as the weapon swaying was so atrocious by now that I would be a fool to not keep the animal's camo on whenever needing to knock out enemies. To be honest, I don't even know if you have to take out the entire unit. Normally, the End's weird bond with the plant life in the area is what's causing the entrance to the mountains to be blocked off by vines. But with him already taken care of, the way is already open. That said, I did take them all out. Why? Simply put, I love this game, and I thoroughly enjoy any chance I get to play it. Some of you may be wondering why I didn't just fight the End normally, considering that way I could have snuck up on him and got the moss camo, which, when in direct sunlight, regenerates your stamina through photosynthesis. Honestly, that's a great question, and I don't really have an answer other than my aforementioned reasoning of the time investment of the fight potentially being worse for my overall stamina. Anyway, here is the ladder climbing sequence that everyone likes to remind you of.
The fucking ladder.
Up to the mountains now, and the game likes to warn you that you're going to lose stamina even faster due to there being less oxygen this high up. Wonderful. Good news though, I don't really notice any of the adverse effects here, as I'm wearing the animal's camo anyway, as it's the best one that I have for blending into the rocky environments. The steady aim in open areas are my friends, and allow me to easily pick off any soldiers from a distance with ease. There are more of the floating guard platforms in this area. Apparently, this would normally be occupied by a hind, but because I destroyed it at the base earlier, they are here instead. This also answers my question from the marathon, as I was under the impression that the hind you blow up at the base was the one that you see flying around the area where you meet Eva again, but apparently that is the second hind, and the one you take out at the base is the first hind that is usually at the start of the mountains, So, in other words, me blowing up the hind in
Did-
the other video did work.
Oh no, he's got
It wasn't a
caution.
glitch.
Okay, I'm like, did you just
That's
not
good to know.
notice that thing
I
crash?
can't believe I never knew there were 2 of them, though. Did I say 2? Sorry, I meant none.
Stuff.
Meeting Eva yet again, we get noodles that we cannot use, and a one-way ticket to a boss fight with the Fury. This is where my lack of stamina really showed how annoying it was becoming. Being as low as it was, my health recovery was essentially non-existent. Combine that with the fact that the Fury tends to give me some trouble, and this first attempt was a complete joke. Now, to be fair, I was also trying for the lethal approach in this attempt, as I thought the sniper from before would be a faster alternative than taking out his stamina with a Mark 22. While it may do more overall damage per shot, the fact that you cannot move with it at all ended up making it more of a hindrance than a solution. Needless to say, this resulted in my first death. Stamina does not refill when you restart, by the way, so rejoice, I am still malnourished Snake. Next time it was back to Old Faithful, and I don't know if it's just down to me being more comfortable with this playstyle or good RNG, but this was by far the easiest time I have ever had with this boss fight. Yes, he still set me ablaze on more than one occasion, but by taking my own advice for a change and making use of the third person aiming more than the precision of the first person, I was able to output a more consistent form of damage. It didn't take long for me to come out on top, and now it's time for our quick tour of Groznygrad. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, so I apply my splitter camo and sneak my way over to the nearby truck and use the cardboard box to have me delivered into the base. Once Snake has been signed for, I don my scientist disguise once again.
Oh my god, I don't know why I thought it was so fucking funnily worded, but the stream I was in yesterday was watching a lore video, and the guy said that Snake disguised himself as a box instead of hiding inside of a box. And it made me crack up way too much. It was probably because I was tired, but I thought it was hilarious that it's like, no, he's not hidden in a box. He is disguised as a box, which was 10 times funnier in my brain because I'm not funny and everything's
Locate
funny
the
to
Major,
me.
and with the power of Snake Vape, can knock him out with the overwhelming smell of cherries and drag his body to a nearby locker and steal his clothes. Using the uniform in conjunction with the anti-Senator Armstrong mask, we can get past the security and meet up with Sokolov one final time before he gets kneecapped. Sokolov is then killed by Volgin, and we are tossed in prison, and, shocking to me, we now have regained some of our stamina. I suppose that this happens because the game wants to show the player that Snake is injured, and as such they reduce his stamina to half. But of course, in our case where we were well below half, this technically helps us out quite a bit. I make sure to dig out the tracker so we don't have to deal with the Ocelot unit for a third time.
Oh, I
and then get to
love
work
Metal
cleaning
Gear
out the cell.
Rising.
I'm
The
just
game
go about
is
this the simplest way
absolute
possible. As Johnny's
garbage.
patrolling the cells, I
Game's absolute garbage, and that's why I love it so much. Like, it's garbage in terms of, like, oh god, how do I describe it? It's just goofy fun. It's not like I'm playing this game to play this game because it's great. I am playing this game because I am a fucking Robo Man throwing Metal Gears in the air and just cutting everybody to 10,000 bits because why not? The Metal Gear, oh god, the Metal Gear franchise. What a franchise. Like, I swear if Hideo Kojima didn't, like, revolutionize certain things, like the whole Psycho Mantis fight in Metal Gear 1 and a few other things, it's goofy so much that I think it's understandable why people would play it. Exactly. It's just, it's turn your brain off action garbage, and I love it. But, shit, what was I saying? Yeah, if Hideo Kojima didn't, like, revolutionize certain things, like the Psycho Mantis fight, all, like, the meta stuff that happens in these games, and just, like, the super attention to details, these games would be laughed at. Like, but for, like, the completely different reasons. Like, if you read, like, there's, like, a 5-hour lore video, and I swear I have a stroke every time watching it, because it's just, like, none of this makes sense. Not a single word of this makes sense. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Please, give me more.
just wait until his
Give
back
me
is
more,
ready,
Daddy
and as soon as it
Kojima.
is, I enter the
I'll
codec
just
frequency
suck it down my
144.75,
throat. Jesus.
which unlocks the door, and then I book it for the sewers. I have no weapons, equipment, or camo, and I cannot use CQC. Sure, taking things slow is the way to go, but to hell with that, I just run right down the middle of the base without a care in the world, I am faster than the dogs after all, and it seems that the soldiers can't land a shot to save their lives.
Also, I don't think this game gets enough crap for having Snake run about as fast as a Resident Evil character, and everybody bitches about how slow you run in Resident Evil games.
After a stylish backwards somersault, we land right into our next boss fight, the Sorrow. Nothing really to say here, you walk forward for a couple of minutes until you've shaken hands with everyone you've ever killed before the game says stop. Coming to with 100% water in his lungs, we make our way for what else but more water. We meet up with Eva yet again, and she's probably taking notice that we never ate those noodles, and as such, she forces us to eat one of our own. This doesn't count, by the way. This is in a cutscene, it's not the actual game. That said, however, when Snake wakes up the next morning and it's time to start playing again, our stamina has in fact fully recovered. Considering how little there is left of the game, the likelihood of our stamina ever dropping to dangerous levels again, even without eating, is very low. So the challenge is all about complete, I guess. But for the sake of things, I will very quickly go over the final section of the game for those who want to see how it went.
I was hoping he would lower his stamina down.
With the power of box technology, and then grab the maintenance and sneaking suits from the lockers. The former of which allows me to plant the C3 on the liquid fuel tanks without being discovered, and the latter which allows me to take less damage. Not that it really matters, as the 3 upcoming boss fights barely hurt me. First up is Colonel Volgin. While he may seem intimidating with his lightning powers, staying relatively close to him and just circling around until he's finished gives you the opportunity to slam him into the ground and follow up with a few tranquilizers for some quick and easy damage. This works for the second phase of the battle as well, by the way, only this time you need to watch out for his AoE bullet explosion, which can just be avoided by lying down, so it's not a big deal. For some extra easy emotional damage, feel free to slip on the Raiden mask and confuse Volgin into thinking he's fighting Rykov. This essentially allows you to get in one free hit, or in my case, slam and shoot. This leads to the motorcycle chase, and all you need to know about both sections is that you have infinite ammo, and I really stopped caring about going non-lethal. As for the fight with the Shagohod itself, well, first phase I just shoot the treads and the back of the machine with the RPG as you're told to do. There's not a lot of room for individual player input here, it's a pretty straightforward fight. As for phase 2 when Vulcan gets out and takes control though, well, this is actually even faster. Once again, just shoot the treads and that makes Vulcan vulnerable. Normally I would just blast him with the RPG here, as I am already holding it. However, if you switch to your sniper rifle and manage to land a headshot, you can take out half of his health in one go. This makes it a lot faster than using the rockets, so after you've disabled the treads for the second and final time, line up one final headshot and the Colonel will be toast. Almost literally, in fact. After the second bike segment, we have to escort Eva through a small forest before the final boss. I would say that all of the Resident Evil 4 that I've been playing lately has prepared me for this, but truth be told, Eva can more than defend herself with that revolver that I gave her. Alrighty, time for the final boss, and as I have said previously, once you understand that all you have to do is press the CQC button when the exclamation mark appears, then you're going to win this fight. By staying far enough away from the boss, you can essentially bait her into rushing you down, so she has to close the gap, which almost always leads to her attempting to grapple you, and, you guessed it, leading to a successful counter on your part. Once she is on the ground, just follow up with 2 more shots, and then retreat to a safe distance and rinse and repeat. For an added bonus, you can wear the snow camo to easily vanish from her sight, which makes it so much easier to just straight up shoot her during the fight while she is searching the field for you. After about 4 minutes, the boss is defeated, I choose the correct gun during the Russian roulette sequence, opt to not fire the gun, finishing the game, and proving yes, you can indeed beat Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater without eating. So that ended up being a hell of a lot easier than I thought. I figured the drawbacks of low stamina would be a lot worse.
Interesting. I would watch this, but I'm not watching a 4-hour video
I still
today.
got to play through Snake Eater again, so that makes me happy. For
What's
anyone
this guy
wanting to
have?
know, here are my final stats. They're not all that great as to be
God,
expected.
being in
considering how
3
early in
hours,
the run I gave
45
up on
minutes
trying
is
to be stealthy.
absurd.
Also, I killed a lot of people during that bike sequence. Regardless, that's going to be in this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider the video a like. And
I don't know, what do you got? What else you got, dude? You got some funny videos. I like this guy. Oh, these are way more memey than the Metal Gear ones. Hold on. Hold up. I guess they're not memey, it's just As Abraham Lincoln. What the fuck? Okay, you've convinced me with this one.
When it comes to the Fallout series, there are many ways people can build their characters around what weapons they want to use. If you've been around the channel for a while now, then you know I'm more of a melee weapons enthusiast, partly because I find it more satisfying in using guns in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and that I have such a jittery trigger finger that I'm more likely to paint an outline of someone with bullets than actually hit them. Regardless, I have found that most melee weapons in the 3D Fallout games have their uses at some point or another and aren't all entirely useless. That is all except one, and it's the weapon we're looking at today, as it's time to find out, can you beat Fallout 3 with only the toy knife? For those that are unaware, the toy knife is a variant of the box standard kitchen knife found in Fallout 3, only it is worse in just about every way imaginable. It is not only the worst weapon in the entire game in terms of damage, but it also has the lowest durability of any weapon to boot. And considering it is a unique item and Fallout 3 isn't nice enough to have the jury rigging perk, this means that this piece of plastic can only be repaired by merchants and not the player. Truly, it is a weapon so awful that I may as well be doing a pacifist playthrough of the game. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. Much like with Fallout 4 runs, I'm just using the save at the exit to the vault to save on time, as there isn't anything that really changes in Vault 101 upon repeated playthroughs. For those curious, it's a save from the Mechanist run, so other than the Rad Roach at the 10th birthday party, nothing inside the vault has been harmed. As my weapon of choice this playthrough is going to be about as effective as a blunt toothpick, I will need to assign my special stats and skills effectively to get the most out of its low damage and durability. After careful consideration, I decided on 9 strength, 6 endurance, 3 intelligence, and 10 in agility and luck. Strength could be at 10, but I'll be heading to Megaton immediately.
Oh my
to
god,
grab the
why am I
strength
so
bubblehead,
fucking
so
tired?
No, it would be a waste. Agility is at 10 because melee weapons do more damage in VAT, so I'll be wanting to use it to attack as much as possible. The 10 points in luck then complements this nicely, as well as having a higher chance to crit. The rest of the points I just put into endurance and intelligence, as they were the only other useful stats. A higher endurance stat would be nice, so I'll probably put points into it with the intense training perk down the line. For my tag skills, I choose melee weapons for more damage, speech as it's more effective than bartering in Fallout 3 to convince people to give you more money, and then finally explosives so I can disarm the bomb in Megaton for some easy caps and a free level up. Leaving the vault, I of course level up and put a single point into explosives for the aforementioned reason, and then dump the rest into speech. As I was deciding what perk to take, it dawned on me that I probably should have played as a female character so I could have access to the perk allowing me to do more damage against male enemies, as in the main story you tend to fight more men than women. Hell, every single one of the Enclave soldiers are men. Oh well, I'm not loading back now, so I took Lady Killer anyway and then persuaded Silver to hand over all of her money. Seeing how I haven't mentioned it yet, I may as well bring it up now. The reason I need a lot of caps this run, aside from having to pay for repairs, is that I will need to buy boat tickets to and from Point Lookout if I want to get the toy knife, as that's where it's located. The tickets cost just a bit over 300 caps, so I make use of my speech skill once more and get the 500 cap reward for defusing the bomb. I then grab the strength bubblehead, and as there is no time like the present, begin my long walk to the ferry to Point Lookout. Rather than ducking in and out of various locations, I just head directly southeast and pray I don't become some irradiated monster's dinner. Seems I was right to be cautious, as I was pursued by the worst monster of all, man, as well as fire-breathing ants and a small child. I also get chased by some ghouls, but some basic parkour across these buildings was enough to make them lose interest. I also dodge the ants, and more importantly, Brian in Grey Ditch, and then swim from Willem's Wharf to the ferry to avoid any trouble with the troll raiders near the Citadel. It seems I underestimate how stingy Tobar the ferryman can be, as he ends up charging me 453 caps for a single one-way ticket. While I of course have to pay for this ticket now, that price is far too steep for me to pay to go back and forward, so I came to the decision that I would at the very least play through Point Lookout to the part where the boat rides become free. Finding the toy can be difficult if you don't know where to look, so for once in my life I made sure to research the location of the weapon prior to starting the run. It's directly north of where you get off the boat, near the top of the map to be exact. Thankfully, Point Lookout isn't very large, so it doesn't take long to travel across the entire map. It's in the middle of the swamp, so I have hillbillies and glowing ogres to contend with, which isn't ideal. Once I spot this yellow sign, however, I know I'm close and can run around these bushes to find the toy knife, along with a hockey mask, to serve as a Friday the 13th reference, I suppose. At the moment, it does only 5 damage, even with all my points in melee weapons. Regardless, I don't let that dissuade me and proceed to test it out in the nearby ghoul. To the shock of no one, it barely scratches him. With no other options, I retreat far enough into the swamp that they stop following me. Here is where things get a little interesting. The weapon, as of right now, is in very poor condition, so of course I want to get it fixed. The problem is that Fallout 3 doesn't really have a lot of NPCs that can fully repair your equipment for you. The only one who comes to mind right now is Soma from the Mothership Zeta DLC, but first off, she isn't permanent, and secondly, I am not even going to attempt to stop an alien invasion with a children's toy. At least not today. Lucky for me, this is a Bethesda game we're playing here, so if there's something you need, there's a high likelihood you can glitch it in some shape or form, and repairs aren't any different. Not too far from where I got the knife, I can find a man named Haley. From the outset, he isn't all that special, just your run-of-the-mill
I hate how real that statement is.
Fix up your items. As you can see, he only has 16 in repair, nothing too impressive. Well, if I leave his house and then interact with the nearby Nuka-Cola machine and then re-enter the building and speak to him, we can see his repair skill has now increased by 5. This can happen indefinitely so long as I keep leaving, activating the machine, and re-entering. So after a few minutes I can increase his repair skill to 100, and now have a semi-efficient way to keep the toy knife in a usable condition. Completely repairing it from a broken state only costs 40 caps, so it also won't break the bank, which is nice. As mentioned earlier though, coming back and forth on the ferry is not going to be viable with those prices every time I need my knife superglued back together.
How did people find that? How did people find that glitch? That's absurd. It's dumb.
Arriving at the mansion, and it's just a game of tower defense as we need to defend against waves of tribals. Despite my best efforts to help him get some experience, Desmond, along with his dogs, take out any and all tribals before I get to kill them, rendering most of my efforts pointless.
That's
That
so
said,
painful.
when I get separated from Desmond in the West Wing, I get into a scuffle with some tribals, and it goes about as well as you might imagine. I would say it's like death by 1,000 cuts, but that would of course imply I'm actually killing them, which is of course a lie. If I can say one good thing about the toy knife, it's that it has the lowest AP cost of any weapon, so at the very least, I can attack with it a good number of times in VATS. This, along with the whole extra melee damage in VATS thing, pretty much guarantees the majority of combat will look like this. Realizing that the only things getting damaged are me and my weapon, I opt to just run on ahead and ignore the tribals and seal up the rooms where they're coming from. This is where things get controversial, as I have to use a ranged weapon to blow up the tank to seal off the room. From previous weapon restricted runs in the past, it has become apparent that so long as I don't attack anything with another weapon, then the run is still valid. Much like other Fallout 3 videos where I have to use the BB gun to kill the rat roach anyway. If this bothers you, feel free to say I failed the run. Anyway, once I've sealed the rooms, it's time to defend the main hall, which goes fairly well with Desmond by my side, until he exudes too much of his power and the game crashes. As this is Fallout we're talking about, I was expecting this, so I've been saving every few minutes or so and don't lose a lot of progress. Once again, I throw myself at the tribals, but don't really get anywhere as Desmond mops them up with little difficulty. I can, however, get experience from finishing the quest, which is certainly welcome. Better yet, this quest grants you the Superior Defender perk, which makes it so you deal more damage and take less while standing still. Keep that in mind going forward, as there might be a lot of footage of me standing
surprisingly
still,
similar.
just swinging a knife. I also level
Except that
up
Desmond's a
from
little better
quest,
looking
and
than
from
me.
this point, I'm going to focus on maxing my melee weapons to squeeze as much damage out of the knife as possible. Before pushing ahead with the quest line, I returned to Haley and fixed up my weapons and armor. I also made sure to loot everything from the tribals so that I would definitely have enough caps. With my skills increased and the weapon fully repaired, I now do 11 damage with each swing, so it's not awful. In fact, I managed to actually take down some vicious dogs while I was on my way to join the cult. I know that really isn't saying much, but it's certainly an improvement over before. My next mission is to get as high as a kite while retrieving the seeds of the Mega Punga fruit. The whole place is overrun with mirelurks, probably comes as no surprise, but I choose not to engage them and get lobotomized in record time. After waking up from my fever dream, I confront Nadine to learn the location of the tribe's leader, as well as to make her go and become the new captain of the boat, so I don't have to worry about throwing away all of my money. On the way to the tribe's leader, I get jumped by some feral and swamp ghouls and decide to stand my ground. I am well aware that this is most likely in part to coming to the DLC early, and therefore there being weaker enemies, but I'm able to cut through the approaching ghouls with ease. Either the weapon isn't as bad as I initially thought, or my build is managing to make it just a little bit more competent. Like most weapons, its critical damage isn't too bad either. I figure this out as I'm able to sneak attack one shot the leader of the tribals. With that out of the way, it's time to strap Desmond's device to the Ferris wheel and what else but fight more tribals. My maxed out agility and luck really begin to shine from here on out as I finally start getting a decent amount of crits and VATs. The tribals with hunting rifles were fairly simple to deal with. So long as I could close the gap between us, there wasn't a lot they could do about the barrage of pokes coming their way. While the gun-toting tribals were easy enough to deal with, there was one with a knife that for some reason was just inflicting so much more damage on me than any of the others, and was even able to kill me. Not one to let things like that slide, I load back and lure her into an open area by herself, and proceed to engage in the fight again, and thanks to the wonders of the block button, can carefully whittle her down and have my revengeance. After she's out
Today I
of the way,
learned there's a
repair
block
my weapons
button
once
in
more, and
Fallout.
return to Desmond as the mansion explodes. Down in his panic room, I get the final quest, but more importantly, I find this suit of combat armor that's a pretty substantial find at my current level. Not to abruptly cut the DLC short or anything, but this is the end of my adventures in Point Lookout. Simply put, I cannot finish the final quest, as regardless of who you side with, you have to kill Professor Calvert, and as it turns out, he's immune to the toy knife, or any melee weapons as far as I'm aware. That kinda sucks, but on the bright side, I can take out my frustrations on Tobar, now that he has been outed as the tribal's kleptomaniac brain surgeon. With my swampy side adventures behind me, it was time to return to the capital wasteland and see about starting the main quest. While I could fast travel back to Vault 101 and head west to Smith Casey's garage, I figured that since it's a short swim away that I should try and clear the mutants out of the Jefferson Memorial, as it's the only mandatory combat encounter in the entire game other than the rad roach inside the vault at the beginning. Plus, I wanted to hit them now, as at my current level they will most likely just be normal mutants with a few brutes. But if I come back after meeting up with Dad, there's a high likelihood that some of them will have been upgraded to Masters. On a somewhat positive note, normal super mutants don't have as much health as the tribals from Point Lookout, and I'm actually able to take the first two that are outside the memorial down without any trouble. I double check to make sure the difficulty is at normal, which it is, and then continue on inside. I let the turrets inside do some of the work for me as I wait around until the mutants destroy it so that I can save some durability on the toy. Just like the two outside, the mutants in here continue to go down surprisingly easy. So I make my way for the control room where things are bound to get a little more interesting as I face off against my first brute. He obviously has more health and better weapons than the others, as he's using an assault rifle, but it seems like if you just plant yourself right in front of them and hack away, they miss most of their shots. To be fair, I would also probably be a pretty bad shot if a man in a Confederate hat kept hitting me with a squeaky toy while I was trying to focus. As usual, VATS continues to come in clutch in this run, as I keep landing crits while using it. The basement was probably where things got the most tense, as there was a lot of them down here that wanted nothing more than to riddle me with bullets. Once more, invading the brute's personal space makes him so unsettled that with enough patience I can take him down. That said, when I take him down, I level up. Nearly
okay, we're halfway through it.
Better, I take the Bloody Mess perk, as it's one of the only perks that will actually improve my damage output in this entire run. I'd be lying if I said that was the main reason I wanted it though. Let's be real, we all just want to see people explode when hit with a children's toy. With the mutants all cleared out from the interior, I ventured back outside to clear out the last few, but as expected, the knife completely broke before I could accomplish my goal. With no way to defend myself, I ran for Rivet City, all the while my combat armor proved to be one of the best pieces of equipment I could have obtained this run. I have absolutely zero business in Rivet City until I've rescued Dad, but I thought I may as well mark it on the map now rather than later. After I arrive, it's back to Haley to get me in fighting shape once more. I then stop in Megaton for a few healing supplies thanks to the caps I've been hoarding up until now, and then head off west to find Dad. Mole rats and protectrons litter the way to Smith Casey's garage, but they are easy enough to deal with, given that I've been fighting super mutants up until this point. Being a little overzealous, I ran into Evergreen Mills head on and began to take the fight to the raiders. The raiders here, while numerous, are fairly weak and low leveled, so there isn't a lot they can really do. That is, except release the behemoth, who for some reason was on good terms with them and only seemed interested in killing me. Lucky for me though, he seems to have a phobia of cars, as he would run away anytime I stood near them. For what it's worth, after I dealt with the raiders, I did indeed attempt to fight the behemoth. I have a lot of damage resistance, especially for this early in the game, so I can take just about anything he can throw at me. I am also able to just outright block his attacks, which I think says a lot about how strong my guy is. Truth is though, even after taking any and all performance enhancing drugs in my person, the behemoth is just far too tanky for me to take down before the knife breaks. It's a little disappointing, although I figured that this would be the case. On my way out, he was still chasing me, so I lured him into the nearby mines, but they also barely fazed him. With the raiders dead and no one to stop the rampaging behemoth, I pressed on towards Smith Casey's, and rather than waste any time, just know I activated the failsafe because communism. After saving Dad, I managed to level up and max out my melee weapons, and then take the toughness perk because a good defense will probably be required from this point on. Just like with Rivet City earlier, I decided to locate Lamplight now to save on having to do it later, as it's a short jog away from the garage. Just as I was heading there, I came across some outcasts fighting a Mr. Gutsy. Naturally, I jumped in to help, and actually managed to land the killing blow. The true blessing here was that the Mr. Gutsy fired off a few shots into a nearby truck, causing it to then explode, taking out one of the outcast members and gravely injuring the second. He was so badly damaged that a single crit was able to take him out. I then repaired the two sets of power armor with each other, and after I made it safely to Lamplight, went back to Haley and had just enough money to fix up the power armor to max. Sure, I can't wear it yet, but when I can, it is going to be a massive help. Next is Project Purity, and thanks to my disagreements with the mutants earlier, I can move straight onto the back and forth fetch quest part before seeing how I fare against the United States government. I have mentioned in the past that the Enclave and the base game story of Fallout 3 are incredibly weak, more than likely so that the player doesn't get obliterated should they only do the main story up until this point. Well, this is no more apparent here, as just like the mutants and raiders before them, I am able to slowly chop my way through them all without suffering much damage. At the very least, I do get to have one last talk with Dad.
This game is so balanced.
I know there's a lot going on right now. This is all very sudden. I just wanted to say... I wanted to say that I'm proud of you. You're a good person, and it shows.
All of the Enclave and the tunnels are out of stabbing range, so I just leave them be.
So
As for the ghouls,
stupid.
well, they're brittle enough that I can cut their limbs off, so you tell me. Arriving at the Citadel, I go through the necessary hoops to progress the story, but more importantly, I get power armor training and can now put the Outcast set to good use. Returning to Lamplight and I fail the speech check to get in the easy way. Sure, I could save scum until I get in, but where's the fun in that? What this means is it's off to Paradise Falls to see a man about a slave. Clearly, I just cannot escape Lincoln, as once again I channel his power as I bring a righteous fury down upon every slaver in my way. The power armor proves to be a great addition to my arsenal as bullets and melee weapons just seem to bounce right off of me and don't even come close to putting me down, while I slowly beat every one of them into submission. Clover, with her Chinese officer sword, believe it or not, was probably the strongest of them all, although this may have been down to the fact that she's a potential companion, so she may have a lot more defense and health than the others. All that leaves is Eulogy Jones, and while he wins the prize for being the most fashionable of the slavers, that snazzy red coat won't save him from a blunt stabbing. Other than abolishing slavery for like
God,
the fourth
it's
time
really...
now, coming here was a good idea, as I was able to procure a substantial
It's really
amount of
horrifying to
valuable
think
loot,
of how
and after freeing the
painful it
children,
would actually
I returned to
be
Healy for what else
to
but
fucking...
some much needed repairs and caps.
Like, to get
Saving the
killed
kids, of
by
course,
just a
meant passage
toy
into
knife.
Limelight, and from there,
That seems
murder passed,
horrible.
because I'm not smart enough to skip it with a science check. It's not a huge deal as I just ignore all of the mutants on the way to the entrance of the vault, as I don't feel like backtracking out of Vault 87 should the knife break further in. I fight many of the mutants when I get inside, even a few masters that certainly waste far more of the knife's condition than I probably would have liked. At a certain point, not quite sure when, it occurred to me that I'd be heading to Raven Rock straight after grabbing the Gek, so I wouldn't have another chance to fix my weapon until just before the final mission. As soon as I realized this, I just ignored the rest of the mutants, even per Fox, and ran straight for the Gek. Thankfully, there's a random part of the doorway where there's zero radiation, so I can grab it myself with ease. Also, interesting little tidbit of random knowledge, when the grenade is dropped down by, I guess, Spider-Man, there's a button prompt to activate it. It doesn't do anything as far as I'm aware, but I found it interesting all the same. Waking up in the White House, I level up and take the Finesse perk, further increasing my chance of landing crits to help speed things along. Not that I get a lot of use out of it here, because as mentioned, the knife's condition is dangerously low, so yet again, I have to avoid most of the enemies. This is what I meant at the start of the video by it being close to a pacifist run, as in longer than average encounters, I may as well just not use the weapon and run instead. Making it to the present is simple enough, and for once I don't ask him to nicely off himself and begin to make my leave as the sentry bots clear out the last of the Enclave for me. I thought that I would have enough durability left to take out a
Time for me to
person,
pass out.
so I tested that theory
Hope
on the
I had
final
fun.
soldier with
Thank
a
you, I
missile launcher.
appreciate it.
Well, I could not have
Get
been
some
more
good
wrong,
rest.
because as it turns out, I was only able to deliver one more strike
I
with the
appreciate
knife
you stopping
before
by a
once again
ton.
shattered in my
It's...
hands. Angry at the
You have no
lack of
clue how much I
killing in my
appreciate
life, I returned
it.
to Healy one final time, and then it was time to take back the Purifier. Wanting to get my hands dirty, and because Liberty Prime refused to do his job, I swam my way to the end of the Enclave blockade and took the fight to them. Just like before, their power armor is clearly made out of paper mache, as they just can't stand up to the power of plastic. While fun and entertaining to watch heavily armored soldiers cower in fear before me, I nearly shot myself in the foot with this plan, as when Prime finally started working, sort of, I could proceed to the fight with Autumn and his guards. I was able to take out the Colonel easy enough along with one of the Enclave soldiers, but then yet again, the knife broke on the last man. You may be wondering, well, what's the big deal? Surely Sarah Lyons can just finish him off. And you are right, but because this is Fallout 3, she started glitching out and wouldn't fight back, all the while her gun floated around next to her. This happened a few times, but eventually I managed to get an attempt where she loses her ability of telekinesis and helps me with the fight. I am a little disappointed that she got the final hit on Autumn, but on the plus side, I leveled up, and if there was ever a time to get the rad resistance perk, then this was it. Now with the power to deny radiation consent to enter my body, I could stand and laugh at the quote-unquote lethal levels of radiation inside the chamber. I set my knife down so it would be the last thing I would see, which didn't exactly work, entered the code, finishing the game and proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout 3 with only the toy knife. I'm usually all for melee weapons in my Fallouts, but that was rough. If it wasn't for that exploit with Haley, I don't know if I would have been able to even use the knife that much given its horrible condition. Hope you all enjoyed. Now I'm going to go play Elden Ring.
Crazy, dude. I don't envy the dedication these people have. I'll be honest. What was that? A lot of Fallout stuff. fucking god. That picture of Batman. Iconic shit that I loved when I was in high school and middle school. Holy shit, I haven't seen that in forever. Where is... Did I skip by his Metal Gear videos? He only has two? Bruh. How am I supposed to love your content when you're just doing fucking games I don't like? God damn it. It's still cool. Those videos are really good. Look, I've seen that one. Alright, what do you... Payday's funny. Let's see it.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 100%ing Payday 2 is in the top percentile of difficulty when it comes to the classic completionist challenge in gaming. That is to say, clearing every milestone and earning every potential reward the developers have thrown at us is harder in Payday than 99% of games on the market. I'm talking on par with the Kumu mode in Evil Within, 3,000,000% in Binding of Isaac, and full clearing every Soulsborne game. It's an absolutely unbelievable grind. Now of course there's a degree of subjectivity to this, as the definition of 100% completion actually varies from person to person. Some think that earning all achievements equates to fully completing a game, others might argue that all achievements and optional in-game challenges
God, I need to get
constitutes
Payday.
that
This
full
game looks
clear.
so much fun.
For reference, Payday 2 is still a monster when it comes to these measures of completion, but for me personally, and what I'm focusing on in this video, 100% means doing everything possible, earning everything available, and reaching max level. The all Korok Seeds, 999 Moons, or learning how to play Caravan kinda completion. Fallout New Vegas is my favourite game of all time, and I've still never won a game of bloody Caravan. But when it comes to the art of the full clear, Payday 2 has few rivals in terms of time commitment required and overall challenge you will face on that journey, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly why that's the case. When trying to 100% any game, it's natural to start at the achievements. Normally, there are somewhere between 30 and 50 of these to pick up, which was true for Payday 2 as well, back in August 2013. The game launched with 43 separate achievements for console, which already were a grind enough to defeat many if true achievements is anything to go by, with only 1% of members actually managing to complete them all. However, over on PC, we've been receiving more than 100 additional achievements on achievement per year, ranging from dopamine fodder to nightmarishly challenging. As of May 2023, there are 1,327 achievements for Payday 2 on Steam, including 13 unreleased challenges associated with the upcoming Crude Awakening heist. Admittedly, a sizable chunk of these can simply be earned by completing heists on every difficulty, but even so, we're looking at hundreds of hours worth of additional tasks the devs have left us with, just to get started on that 100% quest. Some of these are exceptionally difficult. In fact, I have an entire video discussing the hardest Payday 2 achievements individually, which you can check out if you'd like to learn more. Some highlights that will have you tearing your hair out include the classic Tabula Rasa, requiring a bare-bones completion of Hotston Breakout, Auction Cry, a true speedrun achievement on Shacklethorn Auction, and Caution Wet Floors, Payday's misguided attempt at platforming on Green Bridge. These are all hard enough on their own, but then of course we have the co-op challenges to consider. Some achievements require your entire team to play in a specific and unusual way, such as Megalomania, which can be incredibly difficult to coordinate, even if it isn't that difficult in practice. Hell, even I, someone with thousands of hours logged into the game casually heisting, challenge running and speedrunning, have failed to pick up one of the co-op required achievements. My great shame, tag you're it, hangs over me like the sword of Damocles and remains my white whale to this day. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention The End, an achievement earned by completing The Secret, a massive years in the making ARG that requires you to translate a made-up language, play a song on an in-game piano, and hold off waves of supernatural cloakers. If you're interested in how that was solved, I have a video explaining exactly that, but for the purpose of this video, just know it's quite a feat of gaming in its own right. Then you have those difficulty achievements I alluded to earlier. Up until Mayhem or Deathwish, these might feel like freebies when compared to actually having to learn speedrun strats or trying to platform in the diesel engine.
I'm looking
That's
at
not
the
case when it comes
Legacy
to the
Collection
Death Sentence difficulty.
for Payday 2.
While some in the community have truly conquered
Damn.
Payday 2's most hardcore difficulty setting, the vast majority of us still find it to be brutally challenging and bordering on unfair within certain heists. On Death Sentence, cops no longer suffer damage drop-off, have vastly inflated health pools, and can spawn in higher numbers, making inexplicable cross-map deaths par for the course. That's not even mentioning the one-down modifier you're required to turn on, limiting you and your team to just a single down before entering custody. Over the years, power creep has come to our aid slightly, with hugely powerful perk decks like Leech, Copycat, and Stoic in our arsenal, but even so, there are few heisters out there who don't shudder at the thought of a DSOD Goat Simulator or Lab Rats, which will be required to unlock all core completion achievements and difficulty mass for your heisters. However, due to its co-op nature, you can always be a passenger and get carried through these heists, meaning whilst it is a massive time sink and worthy achievement to earn, it's not what makes Payday 2 stand amongst the toughest full clear games in the industry. No, if we want to talk about real time investment, we have to talk about the Infamy achievements. Payday 2 has always had a 100 level system, but over the years it's also expanded to the Infamy mechanic, a sort of prestige which allows you to keep progressing after level 100 and earn cool cosmetic rewards in the process. As your Infamy gets higher, up to Infamy 25, the leveling process will also get faster, making earning those levels smooth sailing after a while, and even better, as of a recent update, you no longer have to reset back to level 0 to push through the ranks of Infamy, you can simply use your banked experience instead once you hit level 100. But that's only half the story, as to unlock the final Infamy based achievement and cosmetic, you must earn the King Amongst Thieves, which unlocks at Infamy at 100. Even with all those boosts I mentioned earlier, that's a lot of grinding. Speed leveling crews have managed to min-max the process to around 40 minutes, but I'd argue after Infamy 25, a 2-hour Infamy cycle is actually a respectable time to shoot for.
Oh my god.
With those earlier Infamies taking longer, in total I'd guess it takes between 250 and 300
I'm watching the wrong fucking video to get into Payday, aren't I?
to grind for all leveling achievements. To put it into perspective, I'm Infamy 93 with almost 3.5 thousand hours in the game, although the majority of those came before the 3.0 update. But that's not all. Whilst hitting Infamy 100 fulfills the achievement criteria of 100%ing the game, it ain't the max level. That honour goes to the Big D, Infamy 500. So yeah, you're looking at upwards of 1,000 hours to reach that insane milestone for true completion. That sounds like a lot on the achievement front, but if you're willing to put in the time and money, it's absolutely within your grasp. Wait, money? Oh yeah, Payday 2 also includes DLC achievements, and whilst it has one of the best DLC models in the industry when it comes to heists, allowing you to join but not host any heist in the game regardless, it's a fair bit more restrictive when it comes to weapon packs. At full price, there's over £200 worth of DLC in the game, and even if you were being selective and only purchasing the necessary add-ons, it would still require a fairly large financial investment to hit that 100% goal. Not to mention, many of the game's cosmetics are locked behind DLCs you may or may not be counting toward your completion. Speaking of cosmetics, there are thousands to unlock in Payday 2, most of which can be acquired by just playing the game, and will be found over the natural course of completing those prior challenges. The vast majority of masks, mask customizations, and weapon attachments can be obtained via the loot drop cards that you're rewarded with after heist completion. These are unlocked at random, although the process can be sped up by using Continental coins to purchase all weapon attachments. As for the masks, colours, patterns and materials, you're simply going to need to get lucky. There were a few Halloween exclusives back in the day, but these can now be unlocked all year round. My old method is still probably the best for this, ECM rushing jewelry store or Ukrainian job for sub 30-second clears. Whilst tedious and highly RNG dependent, you should eventually be able to unlock all loot drop cosmetics, especially when we consider the offshore payday mechanic that makes use of your offshore funds to speed up the process. That isn't all for unlockable cosmetics though. There's also the holdout exclusive unlocks that will require you to grind out Payday's forgotten game mode for additional patterns, weapons, colours and infamous masks. There are 63 unique unlocks to find, and you'll get a pool of 12 potential card drops for clearing Wave 9. Holdout is a time-based mode, taking roughly 30 minutes to clear, meaning you'll require a fair few hours of grinding to eventually unlock them all, although in my personal experience, this part of the grind is far faster than any other. Of course, some cosmetics and attachments can also only be unlocked by completing certain specific achievements, but I've already covered the difficulty of those. Then we have weapon and armor skins. These will drop daily within your post-heist card rewards, and are
Sorry
relics
about
of
the
Payday
sound.
2's short
I just need to
system.
readjust my
Keep an eye
chair.
against counting these towards completion, as they're completely random in how they drop and can mostly just be bought on the Steam marketplace. I don't think purchasing completion is really in the spirit of this whole challenge, despite all the required DLCs, so here's where I draw the line and say you can happily 100% Payday 2 without owning every safe skin added to the game. However, the waters do get murkier when it comes to mass and characters. Both are fairly pivotal to gameplay, and unfortunately, not all are accessible within Payday 2 anymore. Scarface and his perk deck Kingpin, the completely overkill pack, and pre-order loot bag DLC are all no longer available for purchase on any platform.
Really?
There are still a few unused codes flying around for sale on the internet, but if you understandably don't want to be gouged for hundreds of dollars by third-party resellers, they're effectively impossible to obtain. This sort of locks players
I could have
miss
swore
out
I
on
saw
them
the
out of that
overkill.
100% save file we're all coveting, again raising the inherent difficulty of achieving this goal. But, at least in my experience, there's still one challenge that goes above and beyond any other in gating
Interesting.
that perfect save file. When Payday 2 added the new safe house, the devs decided that thousands of achievements weren't enough. They needed in-universe trophies to unlock Continental coins and customizable additions to the home base. These range from the lore-relevant coffer trophies required to complete the secret, to a few decorative flamingos earned by shooting them on Scarface Mansion. Yes, I have no idea why Overkill are calling them pelicans. In any case, the trophy system is effectively a second wave of achievements, many of which, whilst not as brutal, are just as awkward to complete as the standard achievements. Again, some require teamwork, and to this day I've still never cleared Mercenary or Scrap Metal. However, with the right team and a few online guides, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to earn 65 out of the 66 total trophies. But the real mark of a hero is Rob the Cop, Payday's most ludicrous challenge. It requires you to kill a total of 655,893 enemies. Now, if you've played Payday before, you'll know the act of murder is really not that hard. You'll end most heists with enough blood in your hands to make even John Wick blush. But even regular kill figures in the 100s will barely make a dent on this astronomical task. On the plus side, sentry kills do count. On the other hand, incendiary kills don't for some reason. This means that not every kill you've ever picked up will even be counted. But let's say on average you earn 150 kills per heist, and I think that's being generous, bearing in mind stealth heists limit your kill count to around 4. But if we take that as a rough average, it would take 4,373 heists to achieve this goal. Again, the rough and probably generous average length of time of a heist is 15 minutes, so that would convert into almost 1,100 hours of playing the game normally. Insane. But of course, you don't have to play Payday 2 normally if you're seeking out Rob the Cop. In fact, fellow Payday partner Unknown Knight has a guide to min-max your kills per minute, taking a sentry setup on normal difficulty to the prison nightmare heist and setting up in the train for an endless assault killing spree. His top kills per minute were 132, which, if you could replicate sustainably without breaks, means 7,920 kills per hour. If you were some sort of gaming robot, in theory you could convert this kill rate into a fully completed Rob the Cop trophy in only 83 hours of gameplay. That doesn't sound too bad relative to some of the other achievements I've mentioned, but in truth, even if well optimized, it would likely take more than 100 hours of gameplay and is such a monotonous process, I'm not sure you'd be able to maintain your sanity throughout. Even with these farming possibilities in mind, unless you're one of the lucky few who was able to farm it up using the Hydra's mutator before that was patched out, Rob the Cop is one of the most time-consuming and soul-destroying challenges in both Payday 2 and all of gaming. Combining all of these elements of completion, you can probably start to get some perspective on why 100%ing Payday 2 is a nightmare, as one of the toughest and longest time sinks in gaming history. I suppose it's that perfect storm of 10 years worth of content, a team of reasonably sadistic devs, and a DLC number that rivals Train Simulator. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there are few games harder than Payday 2 when it comes to a challenge like this, and it would be ridiculous to even attempt if you're a relatively new player to the game. even if you were dedicated to completing this specific goal as efficiently as possible, you'd likely be looking at upwards of 3,000 hours of gameplay. But me, I've been riding this crazy train for coming up to 10 years, meaning I've done enough of the prep work to be in with a chance. So my plan is to try and complete as much of the 100% challenge as possible before Payday 3 comes out. I already own all prerequisite DLCs, have grinded 99% of all achievements, and have enough cosmetics to run Mask of the Day for approximately the next 50 years. I'm confident that at the very least I can knock out another few thousand kills for Robdicop and finally conquer my fear of playing public stealth for Tag You're It. The idea of grinding another 400 infamies, on the other hand, does not appeal quite as much. Regardless, this is how I'm planning to spend the final few months of Payday 2's development cycle before I can live it all over again in Payday 3. Here's hoping it's just as insanely expansive as Payday 2 was. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more Payday and game.
Oh shit, I'm glad I didn't buy that. I
One.
didn't know there was a Payday 3 coming
A
out.
huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in Going Infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access
September
to future
21st,
videos
huh?
and vote on upcoming content. Take care.
Okay, I'm glad that I watched to the end of that because, yeah, I was looking at that. I was looking at Payday 2's that whole bundle. I might still buy it. It's $12 fucking dollars. I'll be honest, I might still buy all of Payday 2 because if Payday 3 flops, it's still a game to play, right? I love it.
Happy Pain Day, everyone. I've never been one for celebrating April Fools, so instead I've decided that from here on in, on this channel, April the 1st shall be referred to as Pain Day, a day in which we celebrate Payday 2 at its absolute worst, torturing ourselves with mods that make the game now and unplayable. Last year, the rules of Pain Day stipulated that we had to complete 3 random heists in a row, whilst equipped with random builds, random weapons, and, worst of all, as a random heister. Losing my boy Jimmy was such a hit to morale, I'm not sure how we ever made it through. This year, I'm doubling down. Same rules for success, clear 3 random contracts in a row on Deathwish with no AI assistance, but this time, I'm keeping Jimmy, and instead of randomizing my perk deck or skills, my weapons will constantly be changing with every kill. Do you ever remember playing Gun Game back in Call of Duty? Think that, but in Payday. Each time I pick up a kill, my current weapon will be switched out for another within my inventory, and it just so happens my inventory is full of a copy of every single weapon in the game. Also, just like last year, our starting loadout will be similarly randomized thanks to Hopip's player randomizer. For a quick rundown of the rules, our objective is to complete 3 random heists in a row on Deathwish with no team AI helping us out, and both the player randomizer and gun game mods installed. We also use Random Contract by Dr. Newbie to ensure we have no control over the heist we're given. To actually insert a clause for failure so we're not going forever, once a heist has been played, it cannot be replayed, meaning we need to reach that 3 streak before running out of heist. Stealth heists are fair game, but we'll really need to pray to the RNG gods to get through them. Finally, because the gun game mod can be slightly clunky, I've decided to allow myself a fixed build and perk deck to help out functionally. I've gone for Hacker Copycat as the massively increased weapon swap speed makes the weapon transition much smoother, and the Pocket ECM might give an opportunity to progress from those almost impossible to use weapons. For the build, I've ensured access to all the most important solo skills, including FAKs, Jokers, Feigned Death, and Messiah, alongside a bunch of points dumped into crit to help boost all potential weapons, although the odds of actually getting any use out of Low Blow are slim. Courtesy of my stolen user on Twitter, here's a little tier list with my expected relative power rankings for the random weapons we can roll. Specials should be monstrous if we can avoid getting stuck on some sort of medieval bow, as should the Thanatos or LMGs, but there are plenty of very weak pistols and low damage snipers that could be a real issue if we end up switching to them when facing down large threats such as bulldozers. Heading into the first heist, Border Crossing, we get to see the mod in action, finally forcing me to not just use the Lion's Roar and 5.7 pistol. Immediately we can see just how smooth it is, especially with Copycat. I want to thank Dr. Newbie for creating the original mod, as well as Captain Alpha and Off Your Rocker for their help in fixing my crash issues, and actually providing an updated version of the mod, which is the one linked in the description if you want to try it out for yourself. There are a few peculiarities that are worth mentioning though from a functionality and ruling standpoint. Basically, if you're already mid-animation, the game is unable to activate the weapon swap process, meaning you can theoretically go from sprinting, to firing, to reloading, to actually keep your current weapon for much longer than intended. I will not be abusing this unintended feature to retain a particularly powerful gun, but I am allowed to complete a multi-killing spray with a gun instead of awkwardly trying to swap between every kill. Also, for whatever reason, if you have a bag on your back, the mod won't activate. It took me a little while to work this out, but shouldn't influence the run tremendously. That out the way, in the meantime, you've been watching Border Crossing going surprisingly well until I ended up shield blocked, a real nuisance unit type on Deathwish. Fortunately, Feign Death does keep us going, and I end up getting a shield piercing repeater to take my nemesis down straight after, but this is just a sign of things to come. Into the second half of the heist, snipers become the real problem, making it incredibly difficult to lug the assault rifles across the courtyard. I got stuck with a cross-kill chunky for a little while before I'd worked out that the bag was preventing a weapon swap, which honestly just made things harder. Eventually I made it back into the hangar and was lucky enough to roll the saw, which whilst not a great weapon for picking up kills, can be used to open up loot cages and speed up the securing process. This heist can be a nightmare though. I'm relieved it doesn't pop up on my usual challenge run series, using almost all my first aid kits to try and stay afloat. Eventually I was bullied to the ground by a dozer, auto-revived twice in the space of about 2 seconds, and forced to flee. This did give me the opportunity to secure the last bits of loot, but trying to refuel the plane was a fruitless task at this point with no healing left, especially when I was forced into one of the worst weapons in the game, the English longbow, at a fairly inopportune moment, going down permanently shortly after. What a start, an almost 40-minute long failure. Pain Day is truly upon us. Next up we rolled the Ukrainian prisoner heist. Clearly we're only getting the newer DLC heist, which is fine by me as I don't get to play the
God, why would you
really
hate
challenging
yourself so much to
settings.
do shit like this?
Rolling a couple of pistols initially, it was possible for me to showcase a little randomized stealth. As I'll be permanently wearing the suit, and there are more high than low concealment weapons in the pool, this is a genuinely viable strategy on this run, picking up a kill and switching to a suppressed Heather SMG before clearing the initial objective and freeing Vlad without the alarm being sounded. This wasn't sustainable throughout, but did give me a head start on the heist, easily bringing Vlad back from the beyond and stomping my way through the left side of the map. Whilst defending the power during the office hack, I had some top tier luck, switching to the Basilisk with poison grenades at the perfect time to control the entire building, popping this minigun dozer with unseen strike crits, and then rolling to the North Star to slam 3 shields in a row. Once again I took the left route, landing an absolutely sumptuous platypus collateral before heading out for escape next to the docks. Switching into the flamethrower here was perfectly timed, as in one spray down I could incapacitate half the cops on the map and roll through a bunch of weapons thanks to the damage over time, clearing our first heist of the run in the process. After that great triumph, it was only natural that I'd head into Heat Street for the next heist and roll into the underwhelming Shimano 88s in front of a black dozer, being taken straight to the ground without a chance of Messiah activating. So, back to square one we instantly go. Bank Heist Deposit was where the Payday gods chose to send me next, unfortunately wasting my bank heist roll, a simple heist, on just heist 1 out of the 3 I needed to clear for the challenge. Despite being given an excellent starting loadout, stealth was a bust when I decided to tase the manager in full view of security, but even so, this wasn't going to be that difficult. I had some good luck switching off the 5.7 into the KSP just in time to murk this schooldozer, enjoyed a highly satisfying minigun spraydown, taking full advantage of that switch, and managed to showcase one of my favourite features of the mod, failing to dent another dozer with a pair of underpowered pistols before turning around to quickly switch them out straight into the microgun, a much more apt weapon for the job. I considered trying to re-roll into the saw for the deposit boxes, but in the end just decided to bite the bullet and hold down the F key for a minute instead. A simple heist clear in the end. Transport Park is another heist that should be easy enough to complete, even with my rotating conveyor belt of guns. I got to enjoy the minigun to its fullest again, but really should have drank that in more, as for most of the rest of the heist I was simply holding F to lockpicks and deposit boxes. Even more frustrating, at some point the cops finally started paying attention to me, punching me straight out of a 15-second long animation, which really grinded my gears. Instead of focusing up after this incident, I started playing even more sloppy, completely forgetting that my Ismo is equipped with tombstone slugs which can't pierce shields, resulting in an embarrassing failure on one of the simplest heists in the game. This was disappointing, as not only did it set us back again, it also wasted 2 of the most completable heists on the roster, and I didn't relish the idea of Birth of Sky being my rebound heist. What I did get to enjoy was a pretty slick weapon gauntlet on the plane. This is where the gun game mod really shines and is at its most enjoyable. Going for the skydive, I was nearly wiped off the map on the way down, which honestly shouldn't be possible, but beat cops are so damn OP on Deathwish. After surviving that scare, I started loading money back on the broken pallet, at one point performing a magic trick to turn 1 Compat 5 into 2. Pretty impressive, and the closest we'll get to rolling into the same weapon consecutively during this challenge. Until the snipers start spawning, this heist is really quite easy, although facing down 2 minigun dozers is far from ideal without a set build. Luckily I was able to switch into the Commando 101 to take care of that problem. I'm so used to snipers being a real issue on these challenges, but for once I had access to a full arsenal of ranged weapons, so if I could just swap to them at the right time, they were easy enough to take out. Once again, the diesel engine showed its range of dynamic AI as this heavy swap placed his head directly in front of my scope to catch a bullet aimed at another dozer. Impressive bravery from that lad. Funnily enough, this was actually a worthwhile sacrifice for Team SWAT, as I was forced to switch into a pistol, and that just didn't have the range to take out the initial target. Even so, I was able to airlift the final pallet and gain access to the sewers, commencing the most messy scramble we've seen so far. A surprise source switch could have been disastrous, but I was able to grab a quick kill with it and keep rolling with ranged weapons, faced down by the bad RNG of a triple skulldozer spawn. The pocket ECM did its very best to carry, but I was forced backwards from here, needing my Messiah charge to self-revive from this dozer, before eventually being body blocked to the abyss, not far from safety. Looking
No.
back, I should have just rushed this section and not tried to fight back so intensely, but this was a tough L to take, again, failing to get a point on the board. Lost in Transit was an exciting proposition next as one of the most recent heists added to the game. I came closer than I'd like to admit to timing out during the initial point of no return section of the heist, but was able to blow up the bridge and dispatch of both early minigun dozer spawns. Yet again, I had a perfectly timed source switch which allowed me to access the officers a little earlier than usual. From there, I pushed back outside and started to move the printing plates. Upon exiting the warehouse, I was absolutely peppered by one of the most accurate snipers I've ever seen. I'm not even sure snipers are meant to be able to shoot as quick as this guy was. Whilst I could take him out, the damage was already done as his mate on the opposite roof forced out an early feign death activation. This dozer got a nasty surprise as my wasp transformed into an RPG out of nowhere, blasting him straight into Payday 3. In retaliation, I was blasted straight into Rock A City by this green dozer who took me down in about 0.1 of a second. So much for that grace period, eh? Fortunately, I was able to prop Messiah to save the run, but that was almost a disaster. One of the best things about playing with this mod is how it can create entirely new gameplay possibilities, as I landed my sickest ever FPS no-scope on this sniper thanks to a surprise weapon switch.
Excuse
Absolute
me?
Destruction. From there, things seemed to settle down as the heist looked all but complete, until I decided to stand directly in front of a taser who would have taken me down had my Joker not intervened with a clutch knockback. Once again proving why Jokers are all but necessary to complete runs such as this one. With the second chance he'd given me, I sprinted directly to the train and activated the escape, notching up completion number 1 once again. Unfortunately, the game decided to up the ante on heist number 2 with Reservoir Dogs, a challenging multi-day affair. After pulling off the melee primary glitch early into day 1, I was able to enjoy an even stranger version of it, where due to my constantly changing weapon, the shillelagh just existed as an attachment for every gun I switched to. My favourite being the compound bow, which turned it into some sort of huge growth coming out of my eye. Feeling like one of the Omen twins, I absolutely demolished this dozer with a crit before escorting Mr. Pink into the warehouse. Day 1 didn't come as much as a challenge once I'd found the diamonds, escaping with relative ease onto the more difficult Day 2. The initial ambush on this day is wild at the best of times, but with a constantly revolving arsenal of weapons, it was even crazier than usual. Slamming a bunch of gas into the elevators, but still getting pushed out up against the skull dozers. Once again, a Bronco cop took me down, forcing out Messiah just 1 minute into the heist, but we weren't giving up there. Eventually I was able to push back and start up the process to access the vault. Once again, snipers were less of a threat than usual, meaning I could start moving the diamonds as soon as I gained access to them. Securing the bags across the road was still a challenge, although somehow, using the Kang revolver, I saved the situation by propelling this sniper sideways off the building. With him out the way, I was able to create the space necessary to move the rest of the bags across the road, getting insanely lucky with feign death once again deep into the heist. This good fortune was all I needed to secure the final diamonds and flee to the escape van, claiming success from the jaws of defeat, and leaving us just one more heist from victory. Surely Election Day couldn't be that bad. Surely Day 1 was an absolute breeze, accidentally going loud, but that just meant I got to enjoy more moments like this one. The snipers did their best to bring me down, but it was never really in any doubt. Day 2 would obviously be the same. I survived this green dozer even though I was stuck with a light crossbow, and nothing could be worse than that, right? I mean, I have my pocket ECM, so even standing point blank I was in no danger. Oh, those are DB Grims. They do no damage to dozers. Oof, that's got to be karma for abusing those guns back in the day. I love the sadistic way the dozer crouches down and shoves his weapon directly in my face to ensure there's absolutely no chance of me getting back up. What a painful way to fail heist number 3, and funnily enough I can actually blame my randomized weapon. Fair play gun game, fair play. Of course you're all excited to see me have to go back to square one, so it's wins all around for everyone other than me. I was once again working towards a tight deadline on this one. You can see my frustration rising to the surface when I was down under a minute into the next heist, a transport downtown, again with dozers being the primary culprits. On the plus side, we were gifted a Santa's Workshop next, one of the lowest risk heists in the game. Just try and ignore me getting absolutely brutalized when attempting to hide behind a hostage. That incident made me a little more humble for the rest of the heist, securing the minimum 4 presents and making a run for the escape as soon as it became available. Scarface Mansion was handed to me next, far from an easy heist, but still very manageable if approached in the right way. I was easily able to handle the exterior section of the heist, gaining access to the mansion, landing this saucy collateral and pushing forward with ruining Ernesto Souza's day. Once the paintings were burned and cars dropped in the ocean, I blew up his turrets almost instantly, and then spent over a minute smacking Souza with a plastic slot lever and tickling him with a Shimano 88 before eventually he went down. We had a little incident with a pair of minigun dozers shortly after, but these guys were so preoccupied with my jokers, it was surprisingly simple for me to wander up and banish them to the Shadow Realm with a Kimbo Krinkos. From there, the only remaining goal was not to be sniped, which was easier than it had been in the past, making for a surprisingly anticlimactic clear of the mansion. Of course, the game decided to send me on the yacht heist next, a stealth-only heist that would be far from a walk in the park. On the plus side, I seem to have about 35 detection risk, which really wasn't that bad all things considered. That was until I was forced to perform my first kill, a problem in that it took my suppressor and left me with a far less concealable shotgun. This slip set off a chain reaction as I was getting instantly spotted by every guard I walked past, leaving them cuffed to avoid having to shoot. In the end, I simply ran out of pages after only securing 4 out of the 8 required bundles, failing the heist soon after. The most frustrating thing about this failure was how decent a hand I was handed before throwing it away carelessly. Now well, that streak wasn't meant to be. Onwards to Firestarter, which I accidentally bought on death sentence, leading to me unsurprisingly melting at the hands of the Mendozas. Whoops, glad I wasn't on a streak for that one. Then I rolled up to Car Shop with 75 detection risk and was caught immediately. At the very least, this removes a stealth-only heist from the pool, so I suppose this instant failure could have been worse. Big Bank is where I was taken next, a heist that really isn't that difficult on challenge runs such as this one. I went loud immediately after bumping into this security guard who was doing a great job of blending in like a sieve. Not a problem though, as I was quickly able to locate the keycard and start searching for the right computer. Whilst the rest of the bank went running, apparently this lady was unbothered, moisturised, happy, in her lane, focused and flourishing, just completely unconcerned.
Dude, that's a mood that we all need, right?
After rolling into the saw early, I took the opportunity to head up to the roof and open the door to avoid having to drill it. Although this left me at the mercy of the snipers without a ranged weapon, requiring feigned death to save the attempt. After making it back inside, more strange events started to take place around this mysterious bank teller, with cops straight up disappearing from existence, as even this schooldozer wasn't immune to her Pond Sage powers. She seemed to have put some sort of curse on my game, as of course the final computer I interacted with was the right one to start the time lock. Heading back to the roof, I enacted my revenge on Sniper Kind with a sweet crossbow kill, before dropping back inside and being forced to use my Messiah charge when left with a less than ideal incendiary China Puff switch. Despite using most of my resources up to this point, I was able to gain access to the rear of the bank, attach this security to a wall, and burn my way into the vault. It took a while as I was relying on drills, but eventually I gained access to 4 money bags and completed Big Bank by escaping down the elevator hatch. As we're embarking on what feels like a whirlwind adventure of past challenge run classics, it's time to head to Panic Room now. I was honestly kind of excited to see how the gun game mod would handle the Sniper Gauntlet, ambushing the ambushes and easily handling the soaring section of the heist first, before heading up to the roof to go to work. Honestly, this was unbelievably satisfying, taking down each sniper with a unique weapon, sometimes having to relocate or switch out to more of a ranged option to do the deed. That surprising tactical nuance made this one of the most enjoyable heists on the challenge, and of course, there were plenty of opportunities for me to also indulge my more murderous side and blast my way through units up close and personal. After dealing with all 50 in the snipers, there was still a number of times where things could have gone wrong, but I'm fairly practiced at this heist by now, wiping out an entire room with the commando, and then getting an ideal RPG switch to clear half the roof in a single shot. This created the space necessary to secure the panic room, and along with it, my escape, meaning, once again, we were just a single heist from victory.
You got this,
Oil
dude.
was the destination,
Do it.
a really tough Deathwish heist, but with my potential firepower, I didn't expect too many pitfalls on this one. I even rolled the golden spoon for all you spoon enthusiasts asking for a spoon-only run. This is as close as you're getting for the time being. I usually managed to blow through the wall and gain access to the compound with the EMP sitting outside. This was a simple holdout, rushing a minigun dozer right at the end to create space to run inside. The Akimbo Heathers destroyed his health pool, but finally I get a chance to showcase how monstrous the unique Death Wish tasers are on this heist, as they 3-shot my health after the dozer had worked down my armor, and due to the uncontrollable recoil of my Akimbos, I was unable to land a shot to activate Messiah and bring me back from the dead. Another crushing failure, explaining why Boiling Point is never a heist you should take for granted on Death Wish. Starting out from the bottom again, we have to tackle Slaughterhouse now, a painful solo heist due to its bag moving requirement. I managed to make good use of the saw offensively for once, tearing up the dozer who exited the armoured truck wolf style before getting to drilling the gold safe. The Thanatos proved why I valued it so highly on this challenge by landing a mighty collateral during this initial holdout, and the Incendiary Grims were able to showcase that they're not so bad so long as you're not facing down a dozer. Unfortunately, this heist also loves throwing copious numbers of dozers at you, leading to numerous awkward gunfights up against them. Even so, I was making progress, securing the first 3 bags of gold before the snipers spawned in. On the run back, the Bonetti showcase why pistols are generally not the best switch-ins up against school dozers, just about escaping from this tricky situation with my life intact thanks to an FAK. I was having a nightmare switching into a weapon that was well suited for taking out these snipers on the second half of the heist, which led to me getting impatient and just pushing outside with my Grims, ending up tased, sniped, flashed, then auto-revived, tased again, with feigned death saving the day once more, only to be tased for a 3rd time and still unable to actually work out where the taser was. Eventually, I managed to activate Messiah for one last life, at which point the taser finally revealed himself to me, but he'd already managed to drain my entire ammo pool, leaving me at his mercy and ending the heist. That's genuinely the best individual performance of a single unit in Payday 2 I can ever remember facing. That taser was on me anytime I tried to do anything. What a beast. Failing here was frustrating, but not the end of the world, as at least it saves me lugging even more gold.
I like to
bags
think he
around.
had like 7
Instead,
tasers
given a
on him,
chance to
like
head to
taser
Chapel
guns,
for an auction
because
for what is the most successful
I
stealth
guess no,
attempt
you could
so
just
far.
keep firing it
With my
since
opening
it's his
loadout,
body.
I
Never
seemed to
mind, yeah,
only have
makes
about 20
sense.
detection risk, meaning I was able to lockpick this door right under a guard's nose. This extra stealthing freedom allowed me to access the vault before just taking out the auctioneer in broad daylight to get instant access to his office. In a repeat of the Lost in Transit incident, a green dozer managed to blow me away in a single shot, needing to messiah myself back to life immediately. During the hack, a small battalion of bulldozers decided to simultaneously spawn from all angles, but thanks to the power of the Falcon and Mateva, when combined with crits, I was quickly able to thin the herd, grabbing the vault code and forcing my entrance under the cover of KSP Fire.
This game is
From
so
there, I simply
chaotic
planted
looking.
myself in a store cupboard and turned this into an impossibly close quarters holdout, as the cops started climbing up the walls to try and join me in this little 2x2 room. Fortunately, I just about had the firepower to hold out and escape to the chopper. Of course, instead of being given a nice gift of a heist, I was sent next on the high-risk multi-day Hoxton breakout. High risk for the cops anyway, specifically this woman's hair, which went full-on wacky waveable inflatable at the mere sight of me. From playing this heist over the years, day 1 has actually emerged as the shorter but riskier of the 2 days, meaning here is where I had to be playing my best gun game. Unfortunately, every single SWAT turret that could decided this run would be the perfect time to spawn, resulting in me mostly hiding behind the truck and hoping for the best. On the final road before the parking lot, I was repeatedly switched into the saw, resisting at first as it just seemed too high risk during the drilling objective, but eventually I decided this was an opportunity, hiding out and relying on my jokers to secure the truck's movement, whilst I held onto the key to not failing the car park. This sort of worked, as I was able to get inside and start sawing the doors, only to miss out on the control room at every turn. Instead, having to spend the full 20 seconds lockpicking through each remaining door until I eventually happened upon the Skulldozer's hideout. He got the full force of my freedom stick, and from there I was easily able to push on to day 2. Here the greatest risk is always the FBI spawns, who did tear me to shreds as is customary, but not quite enough to take me down. From there I went off to analyse the clown face evidence, went big game hunting with one of the strongest weapons of the game, downloaded some encryption keys and spent a little time pretending to be the head of the FBI. A walk in the park really, and this mob was already providing me with some memorable Payday 2 moments, handing me the minigun right in front of a dozer and giving me the chance to showcase who the real alpha is. Yeah, it's him. Using a pocket ECM is true Sigma behaviour. With that triumph, I grabbed the server, found a final keycard on my way out, and for the 3rd time secured a 2nd consecutive completion on the run. What joy should await me on this fine payday after the game obviously rolled me nightclub or something? I was already starting to daydream of returning to my basic meta build and never looking back. Of course it was Goat Simulator. I don't think it can get worse than that. What you won't believe from the gameplay is that I'm actually 100% trying my best not to die. Within 13 seconds, I'd gone down twice, only to be dragged back up again by feigned death. missing a point-blank RPG shot and needing a second to wipe this fella out of existence and revive a third time with Messiah. I genuinely checked my difficulty at this point thinking I'd rolled Death Sentence by accident, but no, this is just how hard Deathwish beat cops hit on this godforsaken portion of the heist. It goes without saying that I was overrun a fourth and final time, failing the heist in record time, and setting myself back to the start of the entire challenge. A true Pain Day gift from me to you. Break time as that one crushed my spirit, but later that day I headed into Train Heist, one of the most cumbersome heists in the game. As I was already starting to run out of viable options to take on at this point, I was certainly not throwing away an important heist intentionally. But I wasn't exactly what you'd call distraught when I traded blows with such synchronicity that this guy managed to take me down at the exact moment I did the same to him, leaving me with no viable targets to revive from. Oh no, I guess you won't be able to see me spend half an hour on this heist only to be sniped right beside the escape. What a shame. Instead, the diamond was a nice little layup to get us on the road to challenge run victory, being one of the easier heists in the game, both loud and stealth. Once again, my starting loadout left me at around 25 detection risk, with a silencer to boot, meaning it was an ideal opportunity to showcase my randomised stealthing chops once again. To avoid an unwanted switch, I just forced the cameraman to surrender before moving on with the heist, soon finding out that civilian kills also count towards weapon switches, so much for that plan. Further into the heist, I attempted the same thing with this guard in a less than ideal location, taking the risk and just leaving him cuffed in plain sight, naturally resulting in him getting spotted whilst hacking the final door. Fortunately, this security was hard of sight and couldn't work out why this might be a suspicious situation without walking up to within inches of his cuffed friend, taking a hatchet to his head for his troubles, which he probably also didn't see coming. This was enough to gain access to the Diamond Sanctum, where after all that finessing, I managed to step on a tile and set off the alarm. Fortunately, the diamond itself was already secured, meaning I could basically just hold out until the chopper arrived, and it carried us to heist completion number 1. Counterfeit and Florida was our next destination, another heist with a nice mellow stealth start. By the time the cops had worked out what was going on, I was already setting up the drill and hose to get water pumping those printing plates free. I've never seen a heavy SWAT nope out quite like this at the sight of a group of curs, but I suppose when that little pea shooter can turn into a high caliber sniper rifle at the drop of a hat, I can appreciate his foresight. I did have a bit of a showdown trying to protect the pump, but the timely RPG switch helped me clear the way, blowing the safe to pieces and escaping into the sewers with the loot. This dozer was consistently living 1 second in the past, making it possible for me to circle strafe and melt him before rushing to the final escape grate. Alright, so here we go. Heist number 3, and it's time for a little mercy at last. White Xmas is not a difficult heist, but was exactly what I needed to see, with at least a third of Payday 2's heists already behind me. Fortunately, I'd become a bit of a savant at this mod after hours of failed attempts that had gone before me, clearing all threats off the map with surprising fluidity at long last. Snipers were no longer an issue, and in under 5 minutes Harudin was already safe and secure. After 6.5, the chopper was back, but I wasn't done just yet, rubbing it in by going for extra loot, a cardinal sin on any challenge run. For my hubris, I was so nearly punished in the worst possible way, facing down 2 final tasers and failing to interrupt them both until the final bullet of my Holt had landed, saving the run at the very last second. This was enough of a reminder that it doesn't take much for a randomized heist to turn nasty in a heartbeat, deciding it was time to just activate the Pocket ECM to clear the heist, and this year's Pain Day challenge after 25 total heists. Well, that would have been anticlimactic had that been the first 3 heists of the challenge, but fortunately we were blessed with the world's worst Goat Simulator attempt on this fine Pain Day Eve. In all honesty, this challenge was not too bad compared to some I've attempted in the past, and that's in big part to how smooth the gun game mod worked. Repeatedly switching into fully reloaded weapons on each kill can be insanely powerful, not to mention that chance of randomly pulling out an RPG always keeps you interested. Whilst it took me an age to string together a streak of 3 clears in a row, I'm sure you'd still have a ton of fun if you downloaded this mod and gave a similar challenge a try. It's an ideal challenge run format to start with, as the time commitment shouldn't be huge, and the entire weapon changing mechanic is just stupid fun to play around with in any setting. One thing I noticed was the many weapons that have been sat gathering dust in my inventory for years that are well worth picking up again, and shouldn't just be forgotten in favour of the shiny new toys we receive every few months. Thank you everyone for sitting through this year's Pain Day extravaganza. I'll endeavour to be back next year with even more.
That's pretty good. Absolutely jealous that people are this fucking good at games and I'm just, here, watching it. Yeah. mods. Here we
Welcome to the third annual Grand Payday 2 Mod Showcase, bringing to your attention many of the best mods 2022 had to offer, alongside updated experiences and gems from the past I've missed out on. Just to clear things up, this series has gained a bit of a reputation in the past for sometimes giving too much of a spotlight to the less than savoury mod options out there. I want to wholeheartedly apologise and confirm that today we'll only be considering the most refined and tasteful creations that can be enjoyed by all. For example, wait, hang on a minute. What's that? Oh, no. You said I didn't have to do that this year. I'm gonna... Oh, wow, not there too. My weapons. I was gonna... Oh, Joy, what have they done to you? They're everywhere.
Average VTuber watcher be like.
I knew we wouldn't be going down that road again this year. This channel has matured, we have sponsors now, and you know I need to appeal to... Oh. Well, that settles it. Mods this year are just as astonishing as ever. There's no getting around it, from getting dunked on by cloakers to acting sus in Heist. Payday mods in 2022 are impeccable. Now that you've seen the depths of depravity on offer to the Payday community, it is actually time to start exploring the brilliant community creations that will keep the game as fresh as the day it was released, even 9 years later. As ever, this video will be broken up loosely into mod categories, so if there's a particular element of the game you want to see improved upon, feel free to jump forward to any of the timestamps below. First things first, let's take a look at the mods centered around graphical improvements and general aesthetic changes, starting off with Visual Fixes by Dorpenka. Of course, often seen as a companion mod to The Fixes, a creation which aims to remove many of Payday 2's most notorious bugs, Visual Fixes, as the name suggests, targets dozens of minor visual bugs and inconsistencies in the game, makes them appear as was originally intended, and will subtly improve the way Payday looks and feels. It's certainly not a texture overhaul, but sometimes all you need are a few tweaks to make a world infinitely more immersive and believable. It adds certain shadow textures, fixes common issues with the lighting engine, and reintroduces otherwise missing textures and effects. Not to mention, this mod is exceptionally well maintained, even coming in clutch to fix the recently added Viper grenades so they appear as you see in your inventory when actually thrown. A simple must install in my opinion. The Particle Massacre on the other hand will probably be a little more like Marmite to the community. Insanely smooth, tasty Marmite might I add, but even so, not everyone enjoys seeing non-vanilla textures and effects. I personally though am a huge fan of them, and I'm inclined to suggest that Particle Massacre offers the complete package by drawing on the work of its predecessors expertly, who also deserve a ton of credit. Zillybobber has taken the Hollywood shootout concept and rolled with it, including impressive muzzle flashes, brutal blood effects, and more immersive explosions. I found gunfights to simply be more engaging with this mod installed, as tracer rounds flew by and flashy bullet impacts reinforced my use of cover. Not to mention the overall improvements to Payday 2's lackluster fire effects. This mod oozes value and feels like a must-have graphical and realism expansion for anyone seeking a little more grit and cinematic style from their games. Of course, throughout this video, I'll be using HUD mods. This time I've chosen two I'd never used previously to get another fresh perspective on the game. MUI, or Minimalist UI, is a simplistic HUD redesign that aims to reduce the amount of clutter you're seeing on screen. As ever, for a good HUD mod, it has to be highly customizable and solve an issue with the base game's offering. This does both brilliantly, being easy to adjust in real time and reducing the information overload Payday is renowned for. As such, it's particularly good for veteran players who don't need large visual prompts on screen at all times, although keep in mind this is not an info HUD, so will not provide you with useful information such as enemy health and damage indicators. This is where my secondary HUD for this video comes in, Noble HUD. This is quite the opposite of the minimalist ideology, aiming to recreate the Halo Reach heads-up display in Payday 2. It does so absolutely brilliantly, so Halo fans should get a kick out of this one. To amp up the value of this mod for everyone else though, it comes with a bunch of exclusive features going beyond the usual buff tracker and damage indicators, coming with its own fully functioning minimap to highlight enemy positions, as well as a score and kill counter complete with the famous narration. Truly, these are some of the best HUD options on the market, catering to both purists and those who want to really shake up their experience with the game, quickly becoming top recommendations of mine whenever asked to suggest a new custom HUD. You'll see me switch between the two at different stages of the showcase, as I think both have their merits for different players. Alongside user-face improvements, I've also gone to the liberty of downloading a few more specific world-changing modifications, including the absolutely wonderful Bored Ape NFT art gallery. Now, when robbing the Washington Gallery, we can enjoy some of the best digital art on the market, completely free of charge. What, sorry, I'm not allowed to showcase these? The cease and desist is in the mail. I've just spoiled the plot of Payday 3. Sorry, folks. Ignore what you've just seen.
Payday 3 is about
Let's
stealing
just try
NFTs.
this gallery instead. The Bob Ross Art Gallery. A truly ancient mod at this point, but one that most certainly deserves a showcase if Monkey Art isn't doing it for you. This mod turns Payday 2's gallery into an infinitely more relaxing experience with some truly breathtaking works by the late great artist. Give it a go if you want to be truly proud of the art you're stealing. Up next, I thought I'd quickly run through some of the quality of life improvements I like to install to subtly improve anyone's experience with the game without really impacting the essence of it. Better Perk Deck Description by Hinaomi does exactly what you'd expect it to, fixing the usually confusing and inconsistent base game text that attempts to describe how perk decks operate. Veterans of the game may already have an understanding of these nuances, but this is a particularly useful mod for players newer to the game who may not know about usually hidden information such as the additional dodge from Hacker or the extended melee damage duration in Infiltrator, a great example of a mod that should already be implemented by the devs. The continued version of Fastnet Standalone by Test 1 is another of those useful mods that improves upon what Overkill have initially given us, streamlining the often obtrusive matchmaking system to allow you to find public heists far easier. Instead of a poorly presented splodge of lobbies, with this mod you can see every heist that's being run in an online match to join the perfect group for you, even getting extra details such as whether the group are in a heist or in the lobby to avoid those awkwardly timed connections. A must-have for any public game player. A couple of quickfire ones for you now. XP Briefings is a mod worth having for those of you looking to maximise that experience grind, giving detailed XP per minute estimates to compare the efficiency of all heists in the game. A massive improvement on the often incorrect and confusing legacy system. You can now even filter heists by XPM, which is also a very useful tool. Simple toggleable interactions is a mod that I'm sure my girlfriend would have appreciated when she first tried Payday 2. You see, Payday's press to hold mechanic is sometimes a little clunky and can often lead to unfortunate accidents, especially when answering pages. By making these interactions work on a single button input toggle, you avoid all that jeopardy and save on finger strain in the process. Finally, the drag and drop inventory is a wonder of modern science, enabling us to mouse over items in our inventories and move them from location to location and page to page in an instant. This mod is so intuitive in how it works, making inventory management a cinch and simply should be implemented as a permanent feature. Moving on, let's play around with a few animations. Do cloakers get you down? Flipping all over the place, knocking you down, ruining a heist and then rubbing it in? Well, how would you feel if they hit you with the California Girls moves instead?
Oh my god.
Worse? Good. It's working. Now, if you don't want just the cloakers having all the fun, why not start torturing the entire DC population with one of the most ridiculous mods I've ever recommended, Wingding. You've already seen this in action at the start of the video, but to elaborate on that strange sight, Wingding essentially grants you full control over the suite of animations characters can enter. This can get real wild when you decide to bring out the pole dancers. Whilst not a mod I can recommend for long-term usage, I think just about everyone can appreciate the levity this brings to an intense heist situation. Probably the most I've giggled playing Payday 2 in years. When it comes to character animations, I'm also happy to feature the Better Melee Animation mod, which doesn't overhaul the system so much as it simply fixes a number of the less sensible melee animations out there. A great example is the hockey stick, which for some reason we normally limply swing one-handed. By switching it over to the baseball bat animation, it looks like you're actually packing a punch rather than swatting a fly. Time now to talk audio mods, an increasingly popular category which can really impact your experience with the game. Responsive Responders by Red Flame brings back a number of unused cop lines to make the cops feel like more of a living and breathing nemesis, pairing well with some mods I'll be discussing later which actually succeed in making the responders a little less robotic in their fight against the gang. I'd also recommend amping up their volume with the actually audible cops to get the full experience with this one and raise those immersion levels in the process. In addition to these mods, the beta for Project Cell is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious audio overhauls ever seen, and even at this early stage in development is well worth trying out. Not only is this mod very well supported at the moment, it will make your heister, your crew, and everyone else involved in the heist infinitely more talkative, adding many unused or highly specific trigger lines throughout every heist, making it almost as if the crew are actively communicating with each other and yelling encouragement. This is an area I'd love to see Overkill make huge progress with in Payday 3, but until then, having a more dynamic and personality-driven crew is only a mod installation away over on PC. I can't get enough of hearing Jimmy's dulcet tones, although fair warning, if you're picking up a lot of kills and are generally active in the heist, expect to yell lines over each other, possibly breaking the extra immersion we're aiming for. From my perspective though, you can never have too much of Jimmy screaming. Next up, we're on to the real bread and butter of Payday modding, retexturing things to make absolutely zero logical sense. Take for example, Ichiban and Kasuga. What's he doing here? This isn't Yakuza, this is Payday 2. Don't start thinking like that. The question you should be asking yourself is, where's that sussy Among Us fella from similarly titled Betrayal Simulator?
Mongus.
Yeah, that's better. The entire Among Us gang is here to ruin the sanctity of Payday 2 as a gritty and realistic crime shooter, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If the imposter paranoia is too much for you to handle though, why not just try installing the Among Us gauge packages? These cute little guys enhanced my package finding experience and kept an archaic mechanic from back in 2014 surprisingly fresh, even if the meme itself is a little crusty at this stage. Back on the topic of legendary armor reskins, I also want to point out Travis Touchdown from No More Heroes,
hell yeah.
a franchise very close to my heart, who would be one of my top picks for a crossover character if Nintendo ever decided to start playing corporate ball. This is a mod that lets me live at least a fraction of that dream, which is all we can ever really ask for. Once again, the star of seemingly any conversation around Payday 2 modding is Matt Helzor, creating some of the best mods in the business. The definitive version of the Scarface overhaul is another wonderful example of this. Everything is of the highest quality, from the trailer to the mod page, and of course the mod itself, transforming Payday 2's Tony into the real Tony Montana. There's no longer any room for discussion of imposters. The new face is impeccable, the first-person model is unique and stylish, and of course designed to work with all in-game outfits, masks, and armor types. After just a few minutes with him, you'll realise that this new version of Scarface is the definitive one for Payday 2. But if entire character overhauls are a little too much for you, and you'd rather skate closer to that vanilla experience, why not try out the Actually Cyber Trench, taking some of the best recent DLC outfits and enhancing them to make them truly stand out. Talking of enhanced, whoa, I don't think I can show this one. Come back later for the After Dark show, ladies and gents.
What the fuck?
Of course, it's not just the heisters that can benefit from reskins and retextures. Our arsenal of weapons is just as ripe for the modding community to tackle and enhance. One way of achieving that is exceptionally simple, but also pretty genius. Fragtrain's Super Duper Skin Swapper allows you to apply previously unlocked weapon skins to any weapon in the game. Now, not all of these will turn out to be masterpieces, but what's great about this is that in general, weapon skins bring a little more uniqueness to a weapon over the later added colour system. This allows you to create some of the most interesting weapon setups in the game simply by using weapon skins you already own. I was a huge fan of the Tribal Feud when equipped with larger weapons such as the Over 9000 Saw. What a clever mod that seriously multiplies the value of weapon skins in Payday 2. Other creators though, like Cyril DeRoche, have taken it upon themselves to make hundreds of dollars worth of weapon colour DLCs entirely for free. Here I'm showcasing the luxurious weapon colours mod, but I seriously recommend taking a look at Cyril's whole collection. It includes tons of original creations, as well as some D-skins, allowing you to use particularly popular preset weapon skins on any weapon, much like the Skin Swapper. The value of these creations is immense and really does augment the vanilla offerings impressively. If you're more interested in weapon peripherals though, why not try out Prettier Lasers by the one and only Hoppit. This gets rid of that glaring laser beam from the end of your weapon in favour of a more realistic and stylish fade out. The lasers still get their job done nicely, making an impact on any solid object, just without the disco lights in between. And again, if subtle improvements float your boat, I recommend installing Weapon Shadows, another Hoppit creation, which should add a little immersion by adding much needed shadows to the weapons of both the player character and NPCs. Instead of having strangely vampiric weapons without a shadow in sight,
That's so dumb.
you'll finally get to see the weapon you're carrying cast a
Why is it
reality
not in the
shadow.
game?
Sometimes in life, it's the little things. Now, I know for some people that isn't enough. They don't just want to play around with better looking weaponry, they want to try something altogether new, which is where the custom weapon community comes in, creating DLC ready editions all in the package of a free mod. Some of these even err on the side of realism. Take for example the PPS H41, a standalone SMG unlocked at level 33 with some of the highest quality animations you will ever see in game. Easily, this could be an official Overkill edition, even fitting into that World War II niche around Raid's release. Why am I talking about this several years after it came out? Well, this thing is being updated, making a stable and surprisingly well-balanced option, definitely worth trying out if you want to dip your toes into the world of custom weapons. If you've been around the block though, and think you're ready for something entirely out of the realms of Payday realism and balance, the Typhoon is where I'd turn next. This futuristic weapon has been ported across from Crysis 3 and packs a sort of power that verges on the game-breaking. You see, whilst for all intents and purposes it's an SMG, it actually shoots 10 pellets per trigger pull, meaning this ammo-guzzling machine has some of the highest DPS potential in the game. To make things even more fun for users, it has an entirely unique set of custom animations, as well as ragdolling down cops for extra satisfaction, and to reinforce just how damn powerful this thing is. I'd definitely save it for use on the game's hardest difficulties, as it clearly breaks the intended power curve. Tell me again that the Hailstorm's OP. If you're after something a little more balanced, my recommendation would be the Vanilla Mod Pack, another restoration mod which brings back 11 seemingly cut weapons seamlessly into the game. These all come fully kitted out with 165 new attachments in total and have been lovingly restored with custom animations and by taking content from the full library of Starbreeze produced first-person shooters. This is very much a finished and lovingly maintained project, so if you want 11 brilliant new weapons free of charge without having to shop around for individual downloads, look no further than here. However, we all know that there's one weapon still missing. One that the Payday community has clamoured for over the past year. The musket. Fortunately, 2 months ago, our prayers were answered. Through the power of mods, the antique musket has finally arrived, and is a monster of a rifle with Thanatos-like stats. Its custom animations are absolutely perfect, packing an incredibly impressive punch, and genuinely feeling viable, which is a surprise for such a slowly reloading sniper. This is further proof of the theory that, if the question is asked loudly enough, the Payday community will build it, even if Overkill won't. I have a final example of that taking place actually. This one is a little more personal to me. Yep, that's the potato masher exploding on melee hit like a grenade. Yelwonk has never been more honoured than to have a mod made in the wake of his challenge run. It made all of that suffering on the road to becoming the best demo man around just about worth it. It's still not quite the Ullapool Caber, seeing as it instantly reloads itself for endless explosions, possibly making it a little too strong, but I'm never going to complain about a mod creation so pure and beautiful. Thank you for the honour, punished Bernadetta. It was recently pointed out to me that I need to spend more time appreciating the work of the incredibly talented custom heist community. The time invested in crafting an entire heist, often from scratch with custom voice lines, assets and objectives, is basically unparalleled within the wider modding community. With that in mind, I want to do justice to these heists by giving them the analysis they deserve, so my intention is to actually create a separate mod video showcasing the biggest and best custom heists out there, and hopefully giving you guys hours and hours of new content to experience for the first time. However, it wouldn't be the annual Noli mod video without giving you a taste of what to expect from these map creators. First up, for those of you who want an impeccably crafted multi-day heist with an extended custom narrative, look no further than Hunter and Hunted. This is the finale in a series of Russian heists by Kyrios, which truly goes out with a bang. Expect assassination, intense gunplay with additional allies, and a developing storyline which takes us from a repurposed daytime variant of Framing Frame to a sprawling airstrip gunfight, and then finally into the sky ourselves. Prepare for a genuinely cinematic and challenging experience, which I found to be immaculately paced and driven by stellar voice acting throughout. The only thing that gives it away as a custom build is the fact that it's spread over 3 days, which, if you're craving the old times, may not be such a bad thing at all. I stumbled upon a few strange geometry bugs, but other than that, Hunter and Hunted is a truly polished experience, well worth checking out. However, if you think this is too similar to the professionally made heists we have in-game and want something truly unique, why not give Sniper Assassin a download, the first and only long-range sniper stealth heist in the game. I've always wanted Overkill to expand stealth Hitman style, and this heist is the perfect blueprint for that, giving us info on 5 targets we're meant to take out from a distance without alerting the entire building and breaking stealth. Watching to learn the behaviours of these marks is key, which is probably more sophisticated than anything we've seen from stealth in the base game. Whilst quite a short heist once you know what you're doing, there's loads of replayability here, and something just truly unique about the experience that you can't find anywhere else in-game.
I'll be back in just a second. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that.
A top-notch concept executed to perfection. Finally, if you're after something a little wackier, why not try the double download of California Heat plus Almir's games. Both heists can be tackled in stealth first and foremost, which is an
Oh, look
excellent
who it
addition to
is.
see. With California
He's
Heat,
back.
you just take on an entirely new form of drug to the Payday gang, burning a plantation and stealing some of the product for later. I adored the multi-enemy boss fight towards the end of this one. It was a unique set piece that felt like an all-out gang war. Quite the impressive crescendo for an
Are you doing
otherwise
this
unassuming heist.
afternoon
Almir's
or
games
night?
takes place
Probably
within the
for
same general map space with
probably
an
closer to
incredible
night.
Payday-themed twist that needs to be seen to be believed. It's a worthwhile addition to the overall bundle and shows the creativity of Oristov and the team. The many custom assets used in this heist help to add to its charm and individuality, undoubtedly another top-tier custom heist well worth your time. I may well be revisiting these heists in more detail in the not too distant future, but until then, let's talk gameplay overhauls. As ever, these are some of the most divisive mods I can cover, but also some of the most impactful
you could be
and
doing- you could-
impressive. First,
You're here?
allow me to gush over Lies, also known as Little Intelligence Enhancements. This mod doesn't try to change the world in one go, instead choosing to improve just about every individual aspect of Payday's janky AI behaviour until we're left with a different, in my opinion, superior game experience overall. I'd be here all day if I discussed every feature of this one, but most importantly, it aims and succeeds in improving AI pathing, targeting, its ability to take cover, and even throw in some less conventional tactics, such as finding nearby medics or shields to group with, and focus on lone heisters based
I
on
can't get
their
over the
proximity to
Halo
another
HUD.
group. Honestly, just
It's
about
just-
every
it keeps
AI
making me
feature has been
fucking laugh
improved by
every
this
time I
monolith
see
of a
it.
mod, so if you're prepared to start fighting against legions of well-trained SWAT troops instead of the usual very special forces lemmings, I implore you to give this a go. And while you're at it, why not augment how these newly buffed enemies look and feel to shoot with the Actually So Much Win Enemies mod. This redesigns the enemy lineups across all difficulties to increase the
Interesting name.
SWAT diversity with clean and impressive military looks. Shooting visors and dozers with this mod installed has never been so satisfying thanks to new bullet impact effects, which again just improves the entire flow of combat. Beyond impressive. Finally, for difficulty tweaking mods, I need to mention the recently uploaded Deathwish Plus. I've heard many people suggest that Deathwish is their favourite difficulty, so I see no reason why we shouldn't try and enhance it. One thing I love with this is the addition of non-town enemy types to this difficulty, adding more variety to the assaulting waves on Deathwish. Another interesting addition to this mod is active loud cuffing, allowing cops to cuff heisters and interrupt interactions if not stopped in the process. A pretty innovative expansion of an otherwise underutilized mechanic. Where this mod may be slightly divisive is in the increased spawn rate and capacity it adds to Deathwish. Payday 2 is already a horde shooter at this point, but Deathwish Plus certainly puts the emphasis on horde. Expect dozens of all types of enemies to fill your screen almost constantly. From my testing, this ended up being a little over the top, requiring incredibly overpowered setups to really handle, but this is the kind of thing I think you need to try for yourself. Maybe you'll enjoy the enemy spawning madness that is Deathwish Plus. I'd just be careful coupling it with Lies. You don't want to end up with a smart swarm of cops. The final mod I'll be covering in this year's showcase is Classic Heisting Reborn, another older but well-maintained mod which provides an incredibly nostalgic experience with a twist. You guys might remember me going back in time to try 2013 Payday last year. Well, Classic Heisting allows you to do exactly that without all the strain and stress of messing around with Steam version backups, taking us to the promised ground of famed update 24.2. If you weren't a fan of the horde madness of Deathwish Plus, maybe this is the ideal mod for you to try, taking Payday back to a simpler time where enemies felt more dangerous but didn't end up taking over every pixel on your screen. Money mattered back then, and there were only 1% of the infamy levels we have access to today. Not to mention a fraction of the
100%.
arsenal and an entirely different set of skills and mechanics to play around with. This is Retro Payday, brought to you in the clean, safe form of a mod, and I adore it. There is honestly so much value to be had in those old mechanics. Gunfights always felt more critical, build choice was varied and involved a lot more specialization, armor, not perk decks, dictated how a heister could play. It was a simpler time, and in some ways a better time. Well worth trying if you missed it, or nostalgically reminiscing if you're anything like me. The huge advantage this mod also has over actual update resetting is that we're still able to play more modern heists in this patch. If you want to see how a heist like Brooklyn 1010 would have felt back in 2014, look no further. You can now play it in all its classic glory. What a mod. What a series of incredible mods.
Impersonating voices is probably one of the
showcase,
hardest things you
and
can
above
do.
all, what a mod community. For all the smut you guys come out with,
I I don't envy anybody. Not envy. I keep saying envy. I give huge props, is what I'll say, to anybody who can impersonate voices. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than that. It's impressive if you can do it. That's for sure. I'll do one more video and then I'm gonna jump off so I can have lunch, and then I'll be back in like, what, 7.5 hours or so? Yeah, let's get one more video in. I mean, hey, as long as it's progress, right? Alright, one more video. Let's do this 2-hour video. Oh, baby. Worst. That's all me.
Payday 2's skill system has evolved a fair bit over its almost 9-year life cycle, with options like Graze completely expanding upon a playstyle and changing how the game can be played. But one thing has remained constant. Some skills absolutely suck. Others fall by the wayside slightly undeservedly.
I don't know, my name was
Today's video
Skills.
is going to hone in on both sets of underused options within the game. Hell, maybe Overkill will see this and make some minor adjustments to those useless skills, or more likely they'll just buff snipers again or something. In any case, I like Payday 2's skill system in the form it currently exists, and think that it's really the perk decks that need looking at a little closer. So this is more of a video for us Payday historians to have a good laugh at how a skill could cost as many points as basic Bullseye, whilst doing effectively nothing. Let's get into it. Combat Medic is a skill that most builds will end up taking. The healing from the medic tree is often just too hard to pass up, and it being the tier 1 skill means that it can't be avoided. And fortunately, its base effect is actually quite good, providing sizable damage resistance whilst reviving, one of the reasons why Inspire Aced has been falling out of favour recently. However, its aced version has to be one of the worst skills in the game. First of all, with Berserker being such a frequently used skill, players will often prefer to be revived at a lower health point for that increased damage, meaning it's one of the few skills that can actually be frustrating to play alongside. But to make matters worse, that 30% increased health it offers generally amounts to very little actual protection on harder difficulties, and with how much healing is already
Sure,
in the
you
game,
take like
will often
one
go
shot and you lose that
unnoticed.
30%.
Decks like Grinder and Hacker already do a much better job, and at this point, many of the best playstyles in the game don't even rely on their health pool anyway. Moving through the Mastermind tree, we next stumble upon Combat Medic, another tier 1 skill which has an incredibly underwhelming aced variant. 0.5 damage absorption per hostage held up to a max of 8 means that we will take 4 less damage from any instance we receive.
4 less.
Sadly, absorption as a stat has been horrendously power crept out of the meta, bearing in mind the most common enemy on death sentence, the heavy SWAT, will deal 225 damage to you at all ranges. To be honest, bringing that down to 221 is not going to make a lick of difference.
It's
Obviously,
fucking
this
hilarious.
makes a much larger difference on lower difficulties, but the second issue I take with it is how awkward and situational it is. On many of the more modern maps, we'll only find 1 or 2 hostages, which can obviously be lost over the duration of a heist, meaning we're seldom even getting the most out of this painfully underpowered skill. The Sharpshooter tree just about gets away with it from me here. That's probably because it's my favourite skill tree in the game, but even so, skills
all
like
of
ammo
these
efficiency
skills
or
popping
stable
up on
shot
the top
haste
of the screen is
are ones
so
I generally try to avoid.
damn
They do, however,
confusing.
have some niche
Or
value
not
on
confusing,
specific
distracting.
builds, so
There we go.
let's not pick on them too much here. In Enforcer, the Shotgunner tree is a similar story to Sharpshooter. It's actually a very powerful tree, even after all the shotgun nerfs. But something about Far Away just doesn't sit right with me. It's generally designed for more of that long-range slug round shotgun playstyle, which feels pretty much outclassed in every which way. But I do like the idea of it somewhat facilitating a style of play, even if that style is a little innately rubbish. A for effort, D for execution. Outside of very specialised setups, this is 9 points I will always avoid.
God, I can't wait
Aced
till
is
I watch all these
actually
videos and
very
finally play the
important
game,
skill, even though
and
it
then
doesn't
turns
look
out I'm
great
just
on the
fucking
surface.
terrible at the game.
Whilst the basic version is excellent for bag-heavy heists, I generally avoid acing it out on most loud builds. However, when you're creating a stealth setup and have quite a few skills left over, luxuries like these are worth grabbing. Increased bag movement speed is certainly useful to have on many of the game's stealth heists, Shadow Raid being one that really stands out. In fact, you can actually create a strange anarchist stealth build with the lightweight ballistic vest to actually compete with the movement speed of Yakuza whilst moving loot around. Not something I'm recommending, but still a somewhat interesting interaction. This one has to fall into the underrated category, at least for stealth. Saw Massacre is a product of the playstyle it promotes being entirely unviable. Reading what it does, it sounds like it would be cool on paper and turn the over 9000 saw into a functional primary weapon. But in truth, it's purely a gimmick for meme builds. If Overkill decided to allow
it's actually the
with
sponsor
ammo
of the,
when used
of the
aggressively,
stream.
it
I
may
swear,
have more
I'm
value,
sponsored.
But as it stands, this would be 9 points invested into a weapon that can only get a few kills before being entirely useless. If it's any indication, this skill wasn't even worthy of being used in my no shooting run. The only time I could imagine it having any actual use. As we shift the focus over to Technician, I've decided to not pick on the sentry gun skills today. They just about get a pass as they buff an underused playstyle which at least finds a place within the holdout game mode. Personally, I don't think sentries should only be viable for builds that fully commit to almost all of these skills, which is a balancing issue overall, but they're not exactly what I would categorize as useless skill options. Hardware Expert Ace, on the other hand, is really poor. For reference, higher up in the tree at Kickstarter, we can get double that 10% auto restart chance for drills at the exact same point cost. This is just a horrible place to spend 3 points if you ask me. I'm not even all that fond of Kickstarter as a skill in general, but at least it feels like better economy than this poor excuse for an RNG buff. Heavy Impact is a bit of a poster child for bad skills in Payday 2. It costs 6 points to ace out and will give us 25% chance to stagger enemies with each shot we land. So that means every 1 in 4 bullets we fire should be staggering. However, have you ever fired 4 bullets at an enemy in Payday 2? How many of those enemies were still standing up after the onslaught, especially if you actually have the aim to land headshots? Oh, none of them? Yeah, this skill is one that sounds absolutely fine on paper, but is almost entirely useless in practice. Basically, there are very few weapons that actually do low enough damage to get use out of the stagger effect without just accidentally killing the target instead. And as I always say, a dead enemy is always better than an incapacitated one. The only enemy type which really has the health pool to make a skill like this useful is the bulldozer, and of course this skill doesn't work on bulldozers. So yeah, I dare you to find a use for this bad boy. Of course, it does go hand in hand with dire need. Now I think this skill is conceptually much more interesting, giving you a guaranteed stagger with the first shot you land on each enemy after your armor breaks. The idea being that you can sort of functionally gate your own death by interrupting the cop's onslaught. But once again, just shoot to kill. This skill costs 3 more points than Heavy Impact, has only marginally more application, and could be replaced by a skill that lets you deal critical damage 30% of the time, or virtually doubles your damage. Honestly, it's not a hard equation for you to weigh up. And sadly, within Artful Dodger, it just keeps getting worse. Sneaky Bastard is a skill that I used to use because I was a lemming and dodge good, right? But if you actually take a look at the investment, it's simply not worth the points, and probably exists as the largest noob trap in the game. Not only is this skill made worse by being at the top of a tree, which we've already established to be full of underpowered options, it's also just underwhelming for what it costs. 10% dodge really isn't all it's cracked up to be. The only time I'll grab this skill these days is if I'm running a very high concealment build and can easily get to less than 5 detection risk, meaning it's only a 4-point skill instead of 12. Like I've already said, I could spend 3 points less on 30% crit chance, which is an inherently better stat to have than those measly 10 points of dodge. Moving on to second wind aced, there's been a real trend of tier 1 skills aced variants being god awful, but this is an underused skill that I actually find to have some potential. Being able to communicate and time that 30% increased movement speed with your entire team can be excellent for pushing objectives or making breaks. I know builds tend to focus on looking after number 1, but as a supportive co-op skill, I do actually think it gets unfairly overlooked at times. Finally, we move over to Fugitive. Trigger Happy is a top tier pistol skill in the Gunslinger tree, however the Ace version feels very poorly conceived. Most pistols have more than a high enough fire rate to just leverage the 2-second damage buff when firing consecutively. To make matters worse, it doesn't even work when hot swapping to a secondary weapon like Overkill Ace does. Really, this is just a relic of an old skill rebalance, which after Trigger Happy was initially buffed, became surplus to requirements. Don't waste your points on it. The Revenant tree is kinda strange at best, fairly useless at worst, but at least you can see what most of its skills are getting at. Sadly, Up You Go Aced doesn't make sense in any build. Skills that activate on death or rely upon a successful revive are always a bit tenuous in their use, but this one feels like Combat Medic's more selfish older brother, instead allowing you to revive with 40% more health every time. At least the health gain is consensual this time, so it won't be impacting other players. But I've hopefully already explained why that much health doesn't make a lot of difference, and healing is so prevalent in the game that it shouldn't be necessary. The melee playstyle is another that I've always found to be fairly underdeveloped, but Knockdown really takes the cake as far as pointless mechanics are concerned. Martial Arts Aced gives us more of that useless stat. Instead, we could just use those points to increase our melee damage and confirm the kill. Once again, dead is better than fell over in Payday 2. The thing is, when Knockdown was power crept by guaranteed crowd control effects like the Buzzer's Tase, this skill was made even more superfluous. Counter-Strike is a skill that I imagine makes it into very few serious builds. The base effect isn't actually entirely worthless, bearing in mind just how much damage and disruption being meleeed can cause. Of course, it's difficult to use and time properly, enemies are never predictable in when they're going to melee you, but being able to avoid these damage spikes occasionally, whilst also knocking your foe to the ground or interrupting them, is a little underrated in my opinion. Don't forget you can even use this on bulldozers. The Ace version on the other hand, just sucks entirely. If you have the time to start charging your melee swing after becoming aware of a cloaker, you probably also have the time to shoot them in the face instead. Once again, the buzzer can also easily interrupt cloaker charges without costing 9 skill points to use, making this skill slightly redundant. Although, this is one of the few on the list that I don't think I'd change much about, except for maybe making an instant kill on cloakers. I like that it's designed as a direct counterplay skill, and do find the overall effect quite satisfying. So, it's bad, but it's the good kind of bad. Brilliant for meme builds. Speaking of builds that don't quite cut the mustard, this right here is what I imagine to be the worst skill setup in Payday 2, without cheating and using skills that you can't actually make any use out of. Give this a go if you too want to suffer. Sounds like pretty fertile ground for a challenge run, if you ask me. With all that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on my list. Am I underrating some of these skills? Have I picked on some of your favourites? Or am I being too DSOD elitist? And also, what do you think could be done to balance these skills in line with the more meta-relevant options? I'm hoping Overkill seriously evolves its RPG elements in Payday 3 so that skills create far more specialised playstyles, particularly outside of loud combat. If Payday 3 is on your mind as often as it is on mine at this point, you may want to think about picking up a brand new shiny PC to play it on before we reach the launch date. And of course, my range of Payday-centric machines from the guys over at
Well, that was quite interesting and informative. Actually, not even joking. Oh, jeez. Hopefully I'm more awake for the night stream today, but sorry about that. It was kind of just a boring stream where I watch videos instead of actually do something. So, do want to thank everybody who came out, everybody who chatted, all that good stuff. Let me go to the correct scene. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's awesome to actually have people here. 5 hours of sleep. Why gotta do this to me?
This has to be the
This and that.
This has to be the stupidest interaction I've ever had in Ghost of Tabor. Well, that's convenient. Hey.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, why are none of the guns wired? You got any ammo? You got any ammo on you? By any chance? Here, did he have any ammo on him? We can figure out a way to kill each other. Don't worry. We can figure this out, right? We can figure this out.
Huh?
Oh my fucking god.
This has to be the stupidest interaction I've ever
Alright,
had.
that was really good. That was really good. That was worth it. That was worth it. But yeah. I will be back in, like I said, about 7.5 hours. Doing something. I don't know what yet, but I will do something. I'll figure that out. I didn't know what I was doing when I started the stream, so yeah. Maybe we'll do some goofy shit. Maybe I'll connect the PS5 to my my what's it called, capture card. Maybe do some games on there. Just something. I don't know what yet. I've got 7 hours to think of something. But in that 7 hours, I'm going to eat lunch, so I can not be very hungry during the entire stream like I was today. Yeah, I'm going to be goofy. It's going to be a goofy stream. But not actually have goofy in it that I'm aware of. So yeah, I appreciate everybody who was here. Yeah, bed's pretty cool. I've thought about it as well, but I'm probably not going to. I'm not a go back to sleep after I've woke up kind of person, especially when there's the sun out. But yeah, thank you for being here, and I hope everybody has a great day, evening, morning, night, anything you want. Happy America Day for the 0% of Americans that watch me. And yeah. Have a good one. Womp indeed. Womp indeed. And have a good one. We'll see ya.